Chapter 142. How's the reward? Han family young master asked Gu Fei after they were teleported out of the map. It's all right. Gu Fei glanced at it. There was a slight increase in EXP and gold. This was only the first match, so the reward was the least. The further they went, the more they would get. Moreover, the chances of obtaining a random reward were higher. Ambitious people were all aiming for the random reward. As Gu Fei was at the back of the crowd, it was already very late by the time he entered the map and started the match. Furthermore, he had spent half a day in the map. By the time the two of them came out, the first round of the match had already ended. Other than the people who were teleported out of the square after the match, there was no longer a sea of people. Yutian Shenming and Enscathed in Battle stood at the foot of the wall next to the teleportation point with smiles on their faces. When they saw the two of them, they immediately started clapping. Not bad. You won the first match. Han family young master's face darkened. Where's Sword Demon and Brother Yu? Sword Demon went to level up. Brother Yu went offline to the forum, Yutian Shenming replied. Next was the guild battle. Sword Demon and Brother Yu didn't participate. How much EXP did you get? Yutian Shenming came over and asked Gu Fei. Gu Fei reported the number. Yutian Shenming compared. TSK Tisk, there's no free lunch. Compared to you two, we didn't enter the match. The rewards for the match were given out by the guild or mercenary group. As long as the members were online, they could get the rewards even if they didn't participate. Some players who weren't interested in mercenary groups were busy trying to find a big mercenary group to join just to get the rewards. Unfortunately, the strong mercenary groups had reached the level limit. There were no extra spots for freeloaders. The four of them chatted as they moved toward the guild building. Naturally, the guild competition's teleportation array was set up in the plaza outside the guild building. The number of players participating in the guild competition was only slightly higher than the mercenary competition. Similarly, the time limit for the guild competition had also been removed. The area outside the guild building was even more crowded than the mercenary guild. The four of them were instantly separated. After 3 or 2 squeezes, Gu Fei was pushed to the end of the line by the crowd. He was so angry in his heart that he really wanted to use the flaming 3000 layers flames to directly open a path. How could the other mages around him not have the same thought? A huge amount of resentment gathered above the heads of the mages, and the sky turned gray. Originally, the guild competition was scheduled to start at 9 a.m. However, due to the special circumstances, the officials made some adjustments. The teleportation circle was always open. Players could enter and prepare to fight. The crowd kept moving, and it took an hour for Gu Fei to enter. Blue sky, white clouds, the earth. In the end, this scene was specially prepared for the match. According to football, basketball, and other mature competitive systems, this kind of pre-match preparation space should be called a locker room. Gu Fei looked at the group of girls around him and accidentally had a perverted thought. 47. July called out after seeing Gu Fei, only 3 more people. Although it was an official event that everyone paid attention to, there were still many players who couldn't attend due to various reasons. Amethyst had 54 members, and 4 of them couldn't make it tonight. What's the situation with the opponents? Gu Fei asked. Unparalleled in the world, a level 1 guild with 50 members, July said. Since Amethyst was a level 2 guild with 54 members, July saw the 50 or so level 1 and level 2 guilds as her main opponents. This guild was also one of the ones that was introduced during the meeting, but Gu Fei's mind was elsewhere and didn't really listen. What do you guys think about how we're going to fight? July asked. As the guild leader, July had to be fair and open, and even at a time like this, she wanted to be democratic. From Gu Fei's point of view, she was more like an official spokesperson for the reborn Amethyst, not a guild leader. Although this was just a game, and the guild leader didn't have to take herself too seriously, there were times when the temperament of a leader was needed. For example, in a group battle, there had to be at least one person in charge of commanding. Even if the commanding skills were terrible, it was still better than a plate of loose sand fighting on their own. Asking for everyone's opinion first was a little too humble. This kind of guild leader would have a hard time convincing others in other guilds, but in Amethyst, this guild leader was still very harmonious. Perhaps it was because the girls were naturally harmonious. Luo spoke up, I think we should also split into a few small parties. Those who usually train together will be more familiar with each other's teamwork. This wasn't a brilliant idea. For example, Lolua's leveling party was mostly made up of mages. Wouldn't they be shooting themselves in the foot if they went for a group battle? Although Gu Fei thought that Luo had the potential to be a guild leader, he only agreed with her personality and style. It seemed that she was just average in terms of strategy and tactics. Then, everyone's eyes turned to Slim Waist Dance. Slim Waist Dance was carefully cleaning her dagger. As one of the 5 rogues, would she have any good ideas? Xiaowu, what do you think? July asked directly. Opinion? Just go and kill them all and that's it. Slim Waist Dance said. Haha. Gu Fei laughed in his heart. It seemed that the 5 rogues were only high level. This girl's personal strength was outstanding, but she was also completely clueless in this area. Gu Fei looked down on the bravery of a fool. Qianli, what about you? July suddenly turned to ask Gu Fei. Gu Fei was startled. After thinking for a moment, he blushed and said embarrassedly, let's just kill them. Tears. It turned out that he and Slim Waist Dance were jackals of the same lair. They were just guys who wanted to show off their bravery. However, this couldn't be blamed on Gu Fei. Intelligence wasn't the only thing that mattered in this field. Basic theoretical knowledge about the characteristics of the various professions, their playstyles, as well as the various fighting styles that could be used when a few people worked together was absolutely necessary. For example, Gu Fei's skill level was that of a top player in a solo adventure RPG. To be in command, one needed to be an expert in RTS games. They weren't in the same category at all. Because most of the girls weren't interested in RTS games, they were weak in this area. Gu Fei thought back to the girls he knew in the game. It seemed that Boundless Mang had some skill in this area. He remembered that during the battle to avenge Lu Xia on the street, she was pretty good at commanding. Among the 50 reborn Amethyst, there wasn't a single person who was talented in this area. In the end, the battle plan they came up with was, there's strength in numbers. Everyone charge together and kill the enemies they meet. What a crude battle strategy. It was as good as not saying anything. This girl even nodded her head confidently. It was as if she had received some important instruction. If the reborn Amethyst wanted to go far, she could only rely on individual heroism. Hero number 1 Slim Waist Dance had finished cleaning her dagger. After caressing it a few times, she sheathed it at her waist and turned to Gu Fei. Let's see who kills the most. Hero number 2 Gu Fei smiled and pulled out the night streamer. Preparations complete. July submitted the request. The other side had been waiting for a long time. The scene changed and everyone was teleported from the changing room to the map. Unrivaled Heaven had a total of 50 members, but 5 of them weren't present for this match. The 2 guilds combined had a total of 95 people. This map was much bigger than Gu Fei's previous mercenary battle. At the very least, they couldn't find their opponents at a glance. Forward, July said. The girls twisted their waists and ran all over the mountains and plains. Their attitudes weren't serious at all. They laughed and chased each other. It was a very strange scene. Hurry up. Slow down. The road was filled with similar shouts. Those who ran fast and those who ran slow didn't look out for each other at all. They were absolutely free and undisciplined. The valiant Slim Waist Dance sprinted all the way and was about to disappear into the horizon. Gu Fei wanted to look out for the speed of the cleric girls like an idiot, but Luo got her way. She kept on using her healing skills. It's a match. Be serious. Don't waste your mana. Gu Fei said. We're just playing. Why are you so nervous? Luo ate a banana to replenish her mana. Damn, this was the pinnacle of participation. Look at how carefree the girls were. They didn't care about winning or losing at all. They were enjoying themselves. It was as if they were here on vacation. Gu Fei was different. He was still hoping that Amethyst could fight a few more rounds and he could kill a few more. If this continued, wouldn't he be eliminated this round? He had to rely on himself. Gu Fei thought. He didn't want to stay behind and accompany the slow clerics. He took off and left the girls behind in the blink of an eye. After running for a while, Gu Fei saw a small mound in front of him. Slim Waist Dance was lying on the slope and peeking her head out to see something. Gu Fei hurried over and crawled next to Slim Waist Dance. He stuck his head out and asked, "What are you looking at? So slow. I just got here." Slim Waist Dance laughed at Gu Fei. "Nonsense. You're a thief." Gu Fei said, "You're a wizard." "Ha, you're a piece of shit." Slim Waist Dance cheered at her unintentional discovery. Gu Fei didn't pay her any more attention. He could already see the situation behind the mound. Unparalleled beneath the heavens was slowly advancing. The team maintained a fixed formation. The warriors were at the front, the sorcerers and archers were in the middle, the thieves and clerics were at the back, and the paladins were at the flanks. They were constantly buffing the buffs on their members. As a rare breed of fighter, they could just find a random spot and mix in. Look at how professional they are. Gu Fei thought. They were going to meet Amethyst's scatter formation. There was no doubt about it. "When are we going?" "Kill them," Gu Fei said as he jumped onto the mound. He pointed at the night streamer and yelled, "Cinder Tree, you're crazy." Slim Waist Dance also jumped up and pushed Gu Fei to the ground. Whoosh whoosh. A few arrows flew over the mound. "They're prepared. They're just waiting for someone to jump out and ambush us." Slim Waist Dance said, "Is that so? Then hurry up and get off me." Gu Fei said to Slim Waist Dance, who was lying on top of him. Slim Waist Dance was furious. "You didn't even say anything when I let you take advantage of me." "Look up." Gu Fei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Why were people's thoughts so wretched? Slim Waist Dance raised her head. The air above the two seemed to boil. Suddenly, the air was torn apart. Several fire dragons spiraled out and formed a few circles in the blink of an eye. Fire wheel from the heavens. Butterfly knot. The gorgeous match is in full swing. The gorgeous fire wheel from the heavens is burning. Chapter 143. Slender Waist Dance screamed and scrambled away from Gu Fei's body to the side. Gu Fei was even more agile. He pushed himself up with his hands and somersaulted to the side. The wheel of fire almost brushed past Gu Fei's body as it fell down. The small mound spat out flames like a burning egg tart. "Run!" Slender Waist Dance called out to Gu Fei. Gu Fei nodded. He also realized that today's situation was different from the past. Usually, when he went to do a wanted quest, it was considered a sneak attack. Even if he shouted, "Wanted quest," to warn the enemy, he wouldn't encounter such a situation. Today, the enemy's formation of 40 people was only focused on fighting. Their alertness was on a completely different level compared to when they were leveling in the wild or drinking in the tavern. Anything that appeared in their line of sight, they would kill it. Would leveling people have this kind of awareness? Slender Waist Dance and Gu Fei sprinted a few meters. When they looked back, they saw that the enemy had already rushed onto the mound. "Distract them and take them down one by one," Gu Fei said to Slender Waist Dance. Slender Waist Dance nodded. The two of them slowed down a bit. Otherwise, if they ran at full speed, the enemy would be in despair. Who would have the desire to chase them? Who knew that the enemy wasn't in a hurry at all? After getting onto the mound, they still maintained their formation. They stared at the two of them and steadily walked over. They didn't have any intention of breaking the formation. They won't fall for it. Gu Fei sighed. There was a difference between having a leader and not having one. Otherwise, why would the army put so much emphasis on obeying orders and discipline? The two of them didn't know whether to run or not to run. They watched as the enemy slowly approached. "Cover me with spells, I'll charge." Slender Waist Dance pulled out her dagger and said to Gu Fei, "Can you do it?" Gu Fei said casually, but it completely ignited Slender Waist Dance's fighting spirit. "Watch!" Slender Waist Dance yelled and used swift movement to run out. "Slow down." Gu Fei immediately chased after her. But his speed wasn't as fast as Slender Waist Dance. Now that she used swift movement, he was instantly left behind. What was there to cover for? However, the speed of the thin waist dance had clearly shocked the opponents. They saw a figure dashing towards them at a speed that they could not comprehend. The archers and mages, who had their bows drawn and staffs raised in preparation for long-range attacks, were stunned. "Hurry up and attack. What are you waiting for?" Someone shouted. It was easy to keep a clear head when you didn't need to do anything. The archers and mages reacted and attacked together. It was only a 45-man phalanx, divided among the 7 classes. There were also only a few archers. They were far from being able to rain down arrows. Slender Waist Dance waved her hands as she ran. Not a single arrow hit her. However, the mages were much more unrestrained. When they saw that the archers couldn't even hit the target with their arrows, wouldn't the fireball spell be even more useless? So he simply used an area of effect spell. Some used Skyfall Firewheel, while others used Fire 3000 Flames. Instantly, the mages burned a barrier between the team and Slender Waist Dance. Slender Waist Dance was almost killed by rushing in. After she stopped in a hurry, she saw a few white lights flashing behind the red flames. A few tracking arrows had been fired. The tracking arrows weren't as fast as a sniper, and their damage wasn't as high, but the tracking effect was fatal. Slender Waist Dance turned around and ran. Although her movement speed was already very fast, she was still slightly slower than the speed of the arrows. At this time, swift movement was also on cooldown. In the end, a few flashing white arrows chased after Slender Waist Dance's, but Gu Fei had been left behind by Slender Waist Dance and had only just arrived. Seeing Slender Waist Dance charge forward valiantly and then run back in a sorry state, he immediately laughed out loud. "Cover! Where did you go to cover?" Slender Waist Dance scolded Gu Fei as she ran. She even looked back to see how far the tracking arrows were from her. If she could maintain the distance until the skill disappeared, that would be a way to dodge. Gu Fei took a step forward and swung the Night Streak sword, knocking away a tracking arrow. In terms of judgment, the arrow attack of an archer was undoubtedly the weakest. Any normal attack could take it down. However, this was only in theory. Why was the arrow attack weak? It was because its attack speed was the fastest. As Slender Waist Dance ran, she constantly paid attention to the movements of the tracking arrows behind her. In the end, when she saw that Gu Fei had knocked down only 1 arrow, she was immediately shocked. If it were her, she could deal with 1 or 2 arrows. However, there were a total of 6 arrows. She wasn't confident that she could deal with them all. Otherwise, she wouldn't have needed to run. Seeing that there was only 1 arrow left, Slender Waist Dance stopped and turned around to shoot it down. This arrow wasn't aimed at him. If he attacked from the side, it would be easier for him to shoot it down. Slender Waist Dance thought that it was a reasonable explanation. However, it didn't seem like there was any way for the 2 of them to deal with these 45 people. "Help me block the arrows." Slender Waist Dance was thinking when she suddenly heard Gu Fei shout at her. "Ah!" Slender Waist Dance was surprised. Gu Fei had already raised his Dark Streak sword and pointed it at the enemy formation. Several arrows immediately whooshed towards him. Slender Waist Dance didn't have time to think. She immediately rushed in front of Gu Fei. She swung her dagger and knocked down 4 arrows, but 2 of them still hit her. However, with Slender Waist Dance's superior equipment, she could withstand the damage from the 2 arrows. Flaming 3000 layers flames, rise. After blocking this wave of attacks, it was enough for Gu Fei to complete the cast. Different spells had different chanting rules. For example, Heaven Descending Flame Wheel and Fire 3000 Layers Flames, the character couldn't move while chanting and they also couldn't be attacked. Otherwise, the chanting would be interrupted. Apart from this, the spell cast didn't have a hard time. As long as you said a few words, the cast would be complete. However, these few words had to be pronounced clearly. If you only chanted quickly, the system god wouldn't be able to tell what you were saying. That would be the same as not saying anything. From this, it could be seen that if Jay Cho came to a parallel world as a mage, he would probably be the worst one. Gu Fei's Chinese was fluent. His pronunciation was perfect and his speaking speed was moderate. Moreover, his attacks had been blocked by Slender Waist Dance, so there was no reason for him to fail the cast. However, the enemy really didn't care about a mere mage's spell. They continued to advance towards the two of them. The archers, mages, and other long-ranged classes continued to attack. Dodge. What are you waiting for? Gu Fei was about to run, but he saw that Slender Waist Dance was still standing there stupidly. Slender Waist Dance followed Gu Fei to the side and asked in a daze, "Where's your spell?" Gu Fei smiled and snapped his fingers. Sparks flew and blossomed. It was as if the 45-player team had stepped on a landmine and were instantly engulfed in flames. Hey, they aren't dodging. Slender Waist Dance sighed. Gu Fei didn't understand for a moment. Whose side are you on? What's wrong with them not dodging? But Slender Waist Dance pointed and wanted to say that if they didn't dodge, their formation wouldn't fall into disarray, but she opened her mouth and couldn't continue. Where Gu Fei's Thousand Layers flames was blooming, there was only fire left. A huge gap had been burned in Unparalleled Under Heaven's 45-player formation. The remaining people were shocked and confused. Their eyes were filled with panic. The priests at the back of the formation were even more at a loss. They had raised their hands to heal their companions who had been attacked by spells, but their companions had disappeared. Go! Gu Fei waved his hand at Slender Waist Dance and charged forward. He had only used Thousand Layers flames because he had no other choice. Gu Fei still preferred to fight at close range. Hey! Slender Waist Dance clearly didn't have it easy either. A mage yelled and charged into the enemy formation. Unfortunately, she only had time to shout 2 words before Gu Fei was already gone. Slender Waist Dance could only chase after him. Unparalleled Under Heaven still hadn't come back to his senses. 2 full agility speed maniacs were already charging over from the side. Dual Flame Flash. Gu Fei immediately used his killer move. Although half of the Thousand Layers flames had already been killed, it was still 2v20. The pressure was still quite high, and it wasn't time to casually play. This Dual Flame Flash hit 3 people. 2 died on the spot, and the other priest was only burned by spells. Without the Dark Stream Sword's physical attack, he survived. At this time, Slender Waist Dance had also arrived. Her attacks weren't much weaker than Gu Fei's. Her dagger stabbed randomly, and she quickly killed 2 people. At this time, Gu Fei's second Dual Flame Flash had already been used, and he killed 2 people in one go. Only then did the other side come back to their senses. The concept of maintaining formation had already disappeared. The crowd suddenly surrounded the 2 of them. Gu Fei used Dual Flame Flash to kill another person, and then took 2 steps back. With his back against Slender Waist Dance, he asked, "Hey, can you do it? If you can do it, why can't I?" Slender Waist Dance asked. "Alright, you hold them off for a bit. I'll go eat a banana first." Gu Fei used Dual Flame Flash to split the 2 people apart, and then dashed out of the crowd. Unlike Slender Waist Dance, who directly stabbed with her dagger, Gu Fei's high damage required mana. As a mage, describing Gu Fei's mana as poor was already giving face. At this time, his mana was almost empty. "Fuck you bastard!" Slender Waist Dance wanted to cry. She didn't know that Gu Fei had asked this question because he wanted to leave her behind and run away. Slender Waist Dance felt a bit weak facing more than 10 people by herself. She stretched out her neck and shouted, "When are you coming back?" Gu Fei ran while peeling the banana, replying, "Immediately." Hold on. In the end, Unparalleled Under Heaven's people also realized that Gu Fei was out of mana. How could they let go of this opportunity? Immediately, a few people hurriedly chased after Gu Fei. The pressure on Slender Waist Dance lessened. Gu Fei looked back and saw that the other side had split into 2 groups. Slender Waist Dance wasn't in a tight spot anymore, so he ate the banana in 2 or 3 bites. As for whether or not his mana had recovered, he didn't care. He put the Dark Knight light sword back into his pocket and took out Fire Baptism. It was just a few opponents, so he didn't need to use any powerful skills. Now, he finally didn't need to be so careful and nervous. Chapter 144. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Gu Fei counted the people chasing him. There were 6 players in total. There were still 11 people left to deal with the slender waist dancer. This made Gu Fei very unhappy. Could it be that in these guys' eyes he was far inferior to that girl? He really couldn't blame them. Who would pay any attention to a mage who had no magic power? The 6 people chasing him were fearless. They charged forward majestically. When they were still 5 meters away from Gu Fei, there was a sudden thud, and one of them fell to the ground. The remaining 5 were shocked. When did this attack start? They didn't even notice it at all. Everyone's eyes were on Gu Fei. This kid didn't move at all. The 5 couldn't help but stop in their tracks. They looked down and saw that the guy who had fallen was on his back. He was also quite shocked. He kept shouting, "Am I dead? Am I dead?" The 5 of them were speechless. They could already see that there was a banana peel hanging from the bottom of the guy's feet. How could you be so careless? Gu Fei sighed. The 5 of them couldn't care less about the guy on the ground. They shouted and charged forward. They had already seen how strong Gu Fei was as a mage. Now that he had no mana, this was a rare opportunity. Hurry! The 5 of them urged each other. In the blink of an eye, a warrior had already reached 2 meters in front of Gu Fei. He shouted and charged at him. Gu Fei dodged to the side and slashed out with baptism of fire, accurately hanging on his opponent's neck. The warrior's charge didn't hit anything. He felt a chill on the back of his neck. When he turned around, he saw Gu Fei's blade slash across his neck. He was scared out of his wits. The charge skill hadn't ended yet. The warrior continued to run forward for the remaining 2 meters. He thought to himself, "It's over. When I stop, my head will fall off." When he steadied himself, his head was still intact. The warrior looked at his health. It didn't drop much. He immediately realized, how much damage can a mere mage do? With this thought in mind, he immediately roused himself, brandishing the giant sword in his hand and charging back. The other 4 also arrived at this time, brandishing their weapons as they attacked Gu Fei. Behind them, the one who had been knocked over by the banana peel was also getting up from the ground. However, there were only a few of them. Gu Fei did not care about them at all. He brandished his saber and started fighting with them. Chopping, stabbing, lifting, twisting, slicing. Every single move never missed its mark. The more they fought, the more apprehensive they became. In their eyes, Gu Fei's movement technique was like a ghost. Be it normal attacks or skill attacks, none of them could hit him. However, no one was able to dodge or block his counterattack. Although the damage dealt was very low, if this continued he would die sooner or later. Moreover, the saber had a spell attached to it. Sometimes, it would suddenly burst into flames, and the burn would be quite painful. They regretted not calling for a priest to follow them. He had thought that he would be able to easily take down a mage without mana, but now... A blood-curdling scream rang out. Someone had already collapsed in the flames. The remaining 5 were even more panicked. At this time, they were all wounded. Without a priest to heal them, who knew when that guy's fire magic would burst out and burn them to death? "Priest, hurry and get a priest." The 5 suddenly turned and ran. At this time, they couldn't care about stopping Gu Fei from recovering mana. Preserving the spark of the revolution was the most important thing. But when they turned around, they were immediately stunned. The people who hadn't chased over were in a worse situation than them. Slender Waist Dance's rapid movement style was even more ghostly than Gu Fei's. His figure weaved through the crowd like a harvester, harvesting lives. They could at least use a few skills on Gu Fei. The people on the other side couldn't keep up with Slender Waist Dance's speed at all, and the skills they used hurt their own people. Of the 11 people, Slender Waist Dance had already taken care of 5. The 5 had completely lost their direction. In front of them was Slender Waist Dance, and behind them was Gu Fei. They finally realized that these 2 people were peerless experts. In front of these 2 people, they had no chance of winning at all. At this time, it was 2 against 11. Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance actually had an overwhelming advantage. The 11 people had no fighting spirit at all. They only resisted listlessly. The 2 also sped up the pace of their looting. In no time, they killed another 10 people. The last warrior held his sword in front of him. He trembled and couldn't stop retreating. Being killed wasn't scary. There was no punishment for dying in a match. What was scary was the opponent's overwhelming strength. The two of them had killed a team of 45 people. Fear was brought about by the disparity in strength. "Or you?" the warrior asked, confused. Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance looked at each other. "Where should we start?" "I won't trouble you. I'll do it myself." The warrior held his sword horizontally. He actually wanted to kill himself. This was his last bit of backbone. Slender Waist Dance screamed. Gu Fei and the warrior were stunned. Then, Slender Waist Dance floated behind the warrior and killed him with a backstab. "You're worth points." Slender Waist Dance mumbled as she watched the warrior's figure disappear in a flash of white light. The battle was over. The system quickly calculated the results of this battle. Since no one from Amethyst died, and all members of Unparalleled World were killed, the final evaluation was perfect. In terms of contribution, Gu Fei killed 32 people and gained 32 points. Slender Waist Dance killed 13 people and gained 13 points. The other girls all gained 0 points. Gu Fei had the highest points and was chosen as the match's MVP. He was awarded an additional 10 points. "What's the use of points?" Gu Fei asked Slender Waist Dance. Perhaps it was because there were too few people in the mercenary battle that the calculation was fast and simple, but Gu Fei didn't notice the system notification. Slender Waist Dance said, "I don't know yet, but since there's this calculation, I believe it's related to the rewards." As the two of them spoke, a white light flashed. The system calculation was over, and the winner was sent back to the square outside the guild building. The other 48 girls were now beside the two of them, their faces full of confusion. "You two took out all 45 people?" Everyone stared at Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance in the crowd. Although they didn't witness the battle, the final statistics announced by the system showed that all 45 people were killed by Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance. "Damn!" Slender Waist Dance screamed. "He took all the points." Slender Waist Dance glared at Gu Fei with a face full of resentment. Gu Fei shrugged. About 20 of his points came from the Cinder Tree Thousand Layers Flame. If it wasn't for the fact that he had no other choice, he didn't want to use an area of effect skill. He didn't think that getting 20 points in one go was very satisfying. He could have fought 20 opponents one by one, but they disappeared just like that. Gu Fei felt sad when he thought about it. Amidst the laughter, someone suggested going to celebrate. Taverns were the only places of entertainment in the game, but there were no taverns that could accept 50 customers at a time, so their business would not be so bad. Amethyst's party went to a few taverns, but they couldn't find a place that could accommodate 50 people. On the other hand, they were surrounded by a lot of onlookers along the way. Of course, it was eye-catching for so many girls to parade through the streets. As for the only man among the group of girls, he was definitely an even more eye-catching existence. When Gu Fei realized this, he lowered his head and bent his waist as he walked, trying his best to blend into the crowd. When he passed by a certain safe zone, he suddenly shouted, "UFO!" This kind of trick wouldn't be able to fool anyone, but Gu Fei, who had been silent all this time, suddenly roared, startling the girls. Gu Fei didn't greet anyone. He ran into the safe zone and went offline. Just like that, the first day of the tournament passed. All in all, there weren't any dark horses. Guilds and mercenary groups such as Reigning the Four Seas and Black Hand easily passed the first round. Guilds and mercenary groups that were considered the favorites to win the championship easily passed the first round. As for the mid-tier guilds and mercenary groups, no one paid attention to them. Even if something happened to them, no one would know. As for the stories that happened between the popular guilds like Amethyst and Peerless, they were easily forgotten. Peerless words carried little weight, and no one paid attention to their guild's name. Moreover, 45 of them were wiped out by 2 of their opponents. Only an idiot would brag about it. As for Amethyst's side, it was Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance who did it. If they didn't brag about it, how could the others be so ignorant as to advertise it? On the second day, the officials announced the matchups for the second round early in the morning. This was so that the guilds and mercenary groups could come up with strategies to deal with their opponents. Unfortunately, the event where the first guild, reigning the four seas, was drawn to the second guild, singing to wine did not happen. Everyone hoped that it would happen sooner. No matter who won or lost, they would be able to get rid of a strong enemy. Unfortunately, things didn't go according to their wishes. In the end, the big guilds were drawn against small guilds that were too weak to even stand up to the wind. Many players began to criticize the officials for manipulating the game and purposely avoiding a strong confrontation. This kind of argument was a little too extreme. There were only a few top-tier guilds, and there were a lot of small and medium-sized guilds. The probability of bumping into a big guild was very low. If the smaller guilds were thick-skinned enough, they would have a reason to suspect that the game developers were plotting against them. They had chosen a strong opponent to eliminate them early so that their existence wouldn't cause trouble for the game company. A true expert would not add unnecessary trouble to themselves. They only knew how to face the difficulties head-on. Muyun Mercenary Group. Level 4. 73 members. Ranked 6th in Cloud City. Their leader is Unchung Matsu. Ranked 7th on the Warrior Experience leaderboard. We won. Brother Yu announced Child Elite Group's opponent for the second round to the other 5. Chapter 145. 73. Everyone was repeating this number. Moreover, these 73 people's levels aren't low. 27 of them are level 40, 39 of them are level 39, and 7 of them are level 38. Gongzi and I basically don't have the ability to fight back, so each of you will have to face 18 opponents. Brother, you said? Everyone was speechless. Even Gu Fei didn't dare to say that he could fight 18 people alone. He had already experienced the guild war yesterday. This kind of clear goal battle had more problems to solve than normal PKs. Usually, Gu Fei would jump in front of people and shout wanted quest. But now, if he revealed even half of his head, the arrows of the archers and the spells of the mages would not be stingy. It was obvious that Child Elite Group had no chance of winning in a direct confrontation. To win this confrontation, we must formulate an effective strategy. Brother Yu looked at Han Family Young Master and said. Han Family Young Master nodded. That's why we can only rely on me. Everyone was speechless again. Let's go. The young master of the Han family stood up, displaying his leader's demeanor. A trifling Yunmu mercenary group won't be able to stop my advance. It's Mu Yun. Brother Yu reminded. He'll be defeated by me anyway. His name isn't worth remembering. Han Family Young Master said in disdain and walked out of the private room. Gongzi is really amazing. Yutian Shenming sighed. No matter how strong the opponent is, I will always be full of confidence in myself. But he can just make my confidence disappear magically. No sense of security. Gu Fei nodded in agreement. Brother Yu and Unscathed in battle were silent. As Han Family Young Master's closest comrade, Sword Demon only smiled faintly. He stood up and was the second to walk out of the private room. The other 4 stood up and left the private room one after another. The number of people participating in the second round of the competition was much smaller than the first round, and the teleportation array was opened 3 hours earlier. The match would start at 7 o'clock sharp, unlike yesterday, when both sides announced that they were ready. Players who did not enter the teleportation circle by 7 o'clock would be considered as not participating in the competition. Because of this rule, many players had already entered the teleportation circle and were in the changing room for pre-battle preparations and tactical arrangements. When the 6 members of the Child Elite Group arrived at the Mercenary Square, there weren't many people outside the teleportation array. The 6 of them were quickly teleported into the changing room. We still have half an hour. The Han Family Young Master looked at the time and sat on the ground. He put his hand into his pocket and took out a bottle of wine. Who wants it? Han Family Young Master asked the 5 of them. Do it yourself, said the 5. You're welcome. I have more. Han Family Young Master took out another bottle and showed it to the 5 of them. The 5 of them shook their heads again. Thus, the young master of the Han clan no longer paid any attention to him. He filled up a bottle, unscrewed another, and started drinking on his own. Brother Yu kept an eye on the number of members on the other side. 55. Another one. 56 people. 57. In the end, the number of people in the Muyun mercenary group reached 68. After 5 minutes, there were only 3 minutes left before the match started at 7 o'clock. 68 people. It seems like these are the people from Muyun mercenary group. Brother Yu announced the final result. That's quite a lot. The Han family young master stood up and poured the remaining half of the wine on the ground. Then he threw the empty bottle away. Get ready to go. The windows of the mercenary channel are open. With a flash of white light, the 6 of them were teleported into the map. The Han family young master looked around and said immediately, Sword Demon, Qianli, Brother Yu, and Wushang, go to the 4 corners of the map and tell me the coordinates. Brother Yu and Wushang will go closer. Qianli and Sword Demon will go farther. The 4 of them turned around and left. No one asked any questions. It was a big taboo to question the commander on the battlefield. Unless you thought you were invincible and had the ability to turn the situation around, even if it was just a game, one person's recklessness could affect the overall situation. Yutian, you may become an unstable factor in this battle, the Han family young master said to Yutian Shenming. Why? Yutian Shenming was surprised. If I tell you the coordinates, can you find them? The Han family young master asked. Yutian Shenming's face turned red. His poor sense of direction was as famous as his reputation as the #1 mage. Follow me first. The Han family young master led the way and led Yutian Shenming into the forest on a small hill. After a while, the Sword Demon and the others came back with their report. Coordinates 500,500, Gu Fei said. Coordinates 0, 500, Sword Demon said. Coordinates 0, 0. This was unscathed in battle. Coordinates 500, 0, Brother Yu said. Oh, it's about the same size as the map I estimated, the Han family young master said. We haven't been discovered, right? Wait a moment, I'll be there soon. While they were talking, the Han family young master and Yutian Shenming had already arrived at the top of the hill. The Han family young master raised his head and murmured, It's not as high as the hill over there. But it should be about the same height when we reach the top of the tree. The Han family young master walked around and finally stopped under a tree. He raised his head and looked around, then patted the tree trunk and said to Yutian Shenming, Come, give me a hand. Yutian Shenming didn't understand what he was going to do. The Han family young master pointed at the top of his head, Go up? Climb the tree? Yutian Shenming was stunned as he helped the Han family young master. This charming young master who loved wine as much as his life did things quickly. Borrowing the support of the imperial divine cry, he climbed up the branch, and in no time he was already climbing higher and higher. What are you doing? Yutian Shenming shouted from under the tree. Don't shout loudly. If you are far away, use the message to communicate. The Han family young master was still able to send messages while climbing the tree. What are the 2 of you doing? The other 4 asked in the mercenary channel. Oh, the field of vision is not bad. The Han family young master sighed in the mercenary channel. What are they doing? The other 4 didn't understand. Wushang, the opponent is heading towards you. They are moving towards the 500 to 0 direction. Qianli, you are now behind the enemy. Can you see them? No. Gu Fei replied. Move towards the 428,427 direction. There is a mound over there. Do you see it? The Han family young master said. There is indeed a mound. How do you know the coordinates? Gu Fei asked as he walked towards the mound. This is talent. The Han family young master smiled. Sword Demon. The 29,476 direction is the low ground. Retreat to that side and move towards the low ground. Update your coordinates at any time. Okay. The Sword Demon also started to move. Yunmu's people are approaching our birthplace. Wushang, the coordinates. The Han family young master said after a while. 592. The other one is Mu Yun. Unscathed in battle said. Do you see the wooden house at 35 to 64? The Han family young master asked. I see it. Go there immediately. I'm not asking you to go there. The enemy is already approaching that direction. Is there a place to hide? Hide first. I can't see you clearly. Damn, there are a few trees blocking my view. The Han family young master cursed. There is a huge rock. Hide. Tell me the coordinates. 54-16. Unscathed in battle hid behind the rock and replied. The Han family young master adjusted his position on the tree and finally found a spot where he could see the huge rock. Looks like you can't hide anymore. Prepare your whirlwind slash. Kill as many as you can. The Mu Yun mercenary group's group had already arrived at the birthplace of the elite group. When they didn't find any traces of the 6 people, they started to divide the members into groups and prepared to do a carpet search. 8 people went in your direction. Wushang, looks like you're going to be the first to die for the group. Our comrades will remember you. The Han family young master said. Damn, you guys can't lose. Unscathed in battle clenched the greatsword in his hand. Of course. Get ready. The Han family young master said. Unscathed in battle's greatsword was pointed at the ground. He had already prepared his whirlwind slash. He was waiting for the enemy to show up and catch them off guard. Damn, we've already been discovered. Hurry and charge out. The Han family young master hurriedly yelled. Unscathed in battle had already discovered the flames above his head. The enemy had clearly discovered that there were people behind the rock. They didn't walk over and directly ordered the mages to carpet bomb the area. Unscathed in battle roared and rushed out. Although he dodged the heaven-falling fire wheel above his head, he was completely disheartened when he saw what was in front of him. The opponents were already on guard against an ambush behind the rock, so they all kept their distance. As soon as Unscathed in battle rushed out, he was directly exposed to the passionate gazes of the 68 people. Arrows, spells, long-range attacks were all coming at him. No matter how high the defense and health of a warrior was, they couldn't withstand such a barrage of attacks. Wushang did not have Gu Fei's or Slender Waist Dance's super reaction speed and speed. Although he managed to disperse 2 fireballs with his greatsword, he was unable to disperse all of them, much less the heaven-descending fire wheel that came crashing down from above. Amidst the flames and arrows, Unscathed in battle began to transform into a white light. In the list of participating members, Unscathed in battle's name instantly dimmed. The opponent had already won 1 point. Brother your spot is a little conspicuous. Move towards 468,101 and go behind that mound. Seeing that the situation wasn't good, the Han family's young master began to speed up the rhythm of his commands. Qianli, are you in position? Stay where you are. The members of the Muyun mercenary group had already been divided into groups of 8, and they headed towards 8 different directions on the map. The remaining 4 people headed towards the highest point on the map. The opponent is about to occupy the high ground. Sword Demon, move towards 128,412. There's a forest there. Move quickly. Brother 2 teams are moving in your direction. They're moving towards the low ground at 399,234. You have to be fast as well. There's a team at 178,134 heading in that direction. You have to get to the low ground before them and escape from there. Qianli, there's a team of 8 people moving towards you. Very good. I'll deal with them. Gu Fei said. No, there's another team moving towards 12 o'clock nearby. If you fight with them, your opponents will be 16 people. The Han family young master said, move towards 426,375 from the back of the mound. As for your speed, I don't need to worry about that, right? Of course. Gu Fei actually wanted to fight with 16 people. However, this was a team activity, and he was a member of the team first and foremost. Yutian Shenming, who had been treated as heir, finally received his first instruction from the Han family young master. What? Yutian Shenming was already bored to death. It seemed that this battle really had nothing to do with him. Moving according to the coordinates was easy for ordinary people, but it was the most difficult thing in the world for people with no sense of direction. The team moving towards 3 o'clock has already entered the forest, the Han family young master said. Yutian Shenming raised his head and looked. The Han family young master was hidden in the dense foliage, so he couldn't see him at all. The tree was indeed an excellent place to hide, but it was a pity that the trees here were thick and tall. Without someone to raise the height of the tree, there was no way for him to grab hold of the branches at the top. What should I do? Yutian Shenming asked. A place like the forest was actually quite suitable for archers, who mainly focused on sneak attacks. However, Yutian Shenming was born with no sense of direction, which limited his development in this area. How could he use the terrain to deal with the enemy without an excellent sense of direction? If Yutian Shenming were to do this, not only would he not be able to figure out the enemy's position, it was very likely that he would be confused about his own position after 2 rounds. Stand up and turn right. Alright, just keep running in this direction. The Han clan's young master said. Oh. Yutian Shenming finally obeyed the instructions of the Han family young master, slung his bow, and ran in the specified direction. On the map, everyone was moving around in a hurry. Butterfly knot. There are more coordinates in this chapter. Those who are able to outline the accurate situation in their minds without confusion, congratulations, you have the same talent as the Han family young master. Chapter 146. The Han family young master stood firmly on the top of the tree and watched the people on the map running busily like ants. He felt quite happy in his heart. The 8 teams of the Muyun mercenary group walked toward the 4 vertices and the midpoint of the square map. The team in the 0-0 position was the first to arrive. After that, they stayed in the same place and didn't move. Update the coordinates, update the coordinates. The Han family young master called out to the others in the mercenary channel. Although they could see far from the top, there were still some places that the Han family young master couldn't see. For example, behind the hillside, in the small forest, and some potholes. At this time, he arranged for them to hide in such a place, so he couldn't pinpoint their exact location. After the 4 of them reported their coordinates, the Han family young master's mouth twitched. Yudin, even I have to admire you. Are you running in a straight line? Of course, Yutian Shenming said. Keep running. I bet you can't get out of this forest, the Han family young master said. Yutian, you can't go that far, right? How did you do the wanted mission? Aren't you just looking for the coordinates? Gu Fei asked. Yutian's coordinate notebook can't be used now, right? Brother, you reminded him. Oh. Gu Fei reacted. Yutian Shenming had a notebook that recorded a lot of Cloud City coordinates. When he needed to go to a coordinate, he had to look it up in his notebook first. Even if he couldn't find it directly, he would at least find something close to it. At this time, there would be a landmark next to it, such as Little Ray's Bar. Thus, Imperial Sky Divine Ming pointed to these familiar locations, and only then was he able to successfully reach these coordinates. Keep the channel clean. Don't chat idly. The Han family young master scolded the 2 of them and then issued a series of instructions. Sword Demon, listen to my command later. Rush out of the forest and run in the 0-400 direction. Qianli, after the Sword Demon starts running, rush out from the back of the hill and move towards the forest in the 366,365 direction. Run as fast as you can. Brother your lowland should be connected to this 426,375 hill, right? Start moving in this direction now. On the other side, in the Muyun Mercenary Group's channel, Captain Unchung Mutsu was personally leading a team of people to search while giving instructions. Did you find anything on the high ground? No. What about the teams? Arrived at 7 o'clock. Nothing. Arrived at 6 o'clock. Nothing. There were 8 squads in the Muyun mercenary group. Apart from the squad that was the furthest away from the 1 o'clock direction, the other 7 squads were already in place. Get ready, everyone. Once we're in position at 1 o'clock, we'll immediately start searching clockwise. Unchung Mutsu sent a message. Unexpectedly, as soon as he gave the order, a report came from the higher ground. Target detected. Target detected. Location. He ran out of the forest in the 11 o'clock direction. He's currently moving in the 10 o'clock direction, the scout from the higher ground reported. This was the best an ordinary person could do. They could divide the map like a clock and then roughly describe the direction. Like Han family young master, who could determine the coordinates with his naked eyes, just like he said, it was a talent. Keep an eye on him and report his movements at all times. The nearest second and third squads will go and intercept him, Unchung Matsu ordered. As soon as the sword demon appeared, the 4 scouts from the higher ground didn't dare to look away from him. There were some blind spots in the higher ground. If they didn't keep an eye on him, they might not be able to figure out where he went at any time. In the end, the 4 of them didn't notice that at the other end of the map, a figure ran out from behind the hill and disappeared into a small forest in the blink of an eye. Sword demon, we're almost there. So, although humans had become ants in the eyes of the Han family young master, he could basically distinguish between friend and foe. Those who were alone were on his side, and those who were in groups were enemies. He stopped. The scout from the higher ground reported. Location. The squad that was preparing to intercept the sword demon asked. The scout couldn't describe it for a moment. If the sword demon was moving, he could describe it as moving in the X-o'clock direction. However, standing still instead made it difficult for him. Location. The squad member asked again. You're moving slightly to the left now. If you keep going, you'll probably hit him. The other team, you can move slightly to the right. A little more to the left. You're too right. The team on the left, a little more to the left. The team on the left is too right. A little more to the left, too left, a little more to the right. A little more to the right, a little more to the right, too much, a little more to the left. Sigh, the other team is too left again, go right. Just like that, the 2 groups of people collapsed. Private chat. The 2 teams roared in unison. Oh! The scout finally reacted. Each person was in charge of a team and began to lead the way. Since the sword demon had not moved at this time, everyone's eyes were not so fixated on him. As a result, when he turned around, he saw a silhouette rushing toward the mountain where the 4 of them were. Found another one! The scout shouted. But Unchung Matsu hurriedly asked. He's running towards us. What are you panicking for? There are 4 of you too. Weren't you already prepared? Unchung Matsu criticized his men for not being calm. But he's so fast. The 4 of them exclaimed as they scrambled to prepare for battle. Fast? How fast can he be? Can he be faster than your arrows? He'll run out of speed in a while. How fast can he be? Unchung Matsu said. He purposely arranged for 4 archers to be on the high ground so that they could attack from afar if they discovered a target. The 4 archers had already knocked their arrows and were ready to snipe. They were just waiting for Gu Fei to enter their shooting range. As Gu Fei approached, Gu Fei's attire became clearer and clearer. The 4 of them opened their mouths wide. This isn't a thief who runs fast. Then what is it? It looks like a mage. The hem of Gu Fei's dark spirit robe fluttered under the high-speed movement had already betrayed him. There were only 2 professions that wore robes, a mage and a priest. And a priest was a non-combat profession. He would not rush over in such an imposing manner. What are you afraid of? You 4 archers. Unchung Matsu scolded his men for being useless. He had not seen it with his own eyes. He could not imagine how fast a mage could move. The 4 scouts were full of questions at this moment. They did not even bother to look at the news in the mercenary channel. Seeing that Gu Fei had entered their shooting range, one of them gave an order. The 4 released the bowstrings in their hands at the same time. 4 arrows flew out like meteors chasing after the moon. Gu Fei was full of confidence. If he was still at level 30, he definitely would not have been able to dodge the archers' attacks. At that time, it wasn't that he could not see the trajectory of the arrows clearly. It was that his body could not reach the required movement speed. But now he was level 39. In comparison, the increase in speed of his skills was not as obvious as the increase in speed of Gu Fei's level 9 agility and the pair of wind-chasing boots. Gu Fei no longer cared about this kind of normal character's sniping. The 4 scouts at the top of the mountain thought that Gu Fei would definitely be taken care of, but they didn't expect to see the black silhouette swish, 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 swish. The 4 arrows were already behind him, and the distance between him and them was reduced by half. But how is this possible? The 4 of them exclaimed together. Tracking arrows, quick, tracking arrows. One of them called out to his 3 companions as he hurriedly nocked an arrow. The most powerful sniping skill had just been used and was on cooldown. It could not be used again. The drawback of an archer needing to be skilled in shooting was once again revealed. It was said that experts who used hidden weapons had to have steady hands. How could archers not? At this moment, one of the 4 scouts had a weak mental fortitude. Seeing Gu Fei rapidly approaching, he couldn't nock his arrow properly. But luckily, the other 3 performed normally. The sound of knocking arrows rang out. Peng, peng, peng. 3 arrows flashing with white light flew out. Gu Fei did not even care about the speed of a sniper. How could he care about a tracking arrow? Even though the tracking ability could not be dodged, why would he need to dodge? The night streak in his hand stabbed out. The tip of the sword shook 3 times, knocking away the 3 arrows. The 4 scouts opened their mouths so wide that their jaws almost dropped to the ground. In this moment of distraction, Gu Fei had finally rushed in front of them. Dual flame flash, dodge. Gu Fei raised his sword and brought it down. Archers were also a class with low HP. They could not withstand Gu Fei's ultimate skill at all. With a flash, 2 of them had already been killed. The other 2 didn't know what to do. Archers at close range were always at a loss. Gu Fei calmly stabbed a few times. The 2 archers could not dodge or fight. They wanted to turn and run, but they were not as fast as Gu Fei. In the end, they died sullenly. Even in death, the 4 scouts could not figure out. Was he a mage? They seemed to have heard him use the mage skill Dual Flame Flash, but could Dual Flame Flash kill people instantly? Was it an illusion? After their deaths, the 4 who were sent out of the field stared at each other. The members of the 2 squads that had surrounded Sword Demon were still sending them messages. Location. Location. Fuck you. The 4 were not in a good mood. When the Unchung Matsu received the news of their deaths, he was shocked. How long had it been since the 4 had reported that they had found the target until they were killed? The Unchung Matsu finally realized that the speed that shocked the 4 scouts was not a big deal. Squad 4, Squad 5, head toward the high ground. Did Team 2 and Team 3 find the target? Not yet. The Han family young master, who was at the top of a tree in the distance, clearly saw Gu Fei rush to the top of the mountain and set off a white light. Then, he received the message that Gu Fei had taken care of. Very good. Qianli, return the way you came. Sword Demon, move swiftly to 223,398. Brother Yu, update your coordinates. Yudin, are you out of the forest? Chapter 147. This was the crucial moment. The Han family young master mumbled to himself. He adjusted his position on the treetop and found the best position to observe the movements of the Muyun Guild. Qianli, go to 118,425. Sword Demon, go to 211,301. Brother Yu, go to 489,101. Yutian, talk to me when we're out of the forest. Gu Fei, Sword Demon, and Brother Yu were running crazily on the map, while Yutian Shenming was running in circles in the forest. On the Muyun mercenary group's side, Captain Unchung Matsu climbed up the hill himself. He wanted to see how fast the speed mage was. Among the ants running crazily on the map, Gu Fei's speed was indeed the most eye-catching. Unchung Matsu recognized it immediately. He couldn't help but be astonished. It was understandable for a thief or an archer. After all, a good pair of shoes and some dexterity would be enough. But a mage? How much dexterity would that be? Wouldn't the mage be useless? How did he kill 4 archers at once? Unchung Mutsu quickly got in touch with the 4 scouts that Gu Fei had killed. How did you die? Unchung Mutsu asked. That guy hacked us to death. I don't believe it. He's only a mage. How could he hack you to death? Unchung Mutsu emphasized the word, hack. We don't understand it either. The 4 felt wronged. They wished that their boss couldn't see them. Did you use identification? Unchung Mutsu asked. No. They didn't have time. The mage was already in front of them after only 2 shots. Is he a wolf in sheep's clothing? Grabbing a mage's robe and using it as a cloak to fool people into thinking that he was a mage? As Unchung Mutsu was thinking, the other 4 messaged him again. But we heard him chanting double flame flash. A mage's chanting doesn't have to come from a mage's mouth, Unchung Mutsu said. But there was fire, said the 2 who had been burnt to death. There's a type of attack called enchantment attack. As soon as the Unchung Mutsu finished explaining, the rest of them were enlightened. What a cunning fellow. This person must be a thief. Unchung Mutsu thought as he watched Gu Fei run. Not only could he see the situation on the map clearly from the top of the hill, but he would also become an obvious target. Gu Fei had killed 4 people at the top of the hill, so he had a good impression of the hill. As he ran, he glanced at the hill and found another person standing upright. Gu Fei was overjoyed. He quickly spread the news among the mercenaries. There's another person on the hill. Earlier than you. Han family young master said. How do we rush over? Gu Fei needed Han family young master to guide the route of the raid. He didn't want to bump into 3 or 4 small teams while running. We're not going over. From now on, your mission is to run. You don't need to fight the enemy, Han family young master said. Not only Gu Fei, but Yutian Shenming and brother Yu were also shocked. The score is now 4-1. We're in the lead, so we don't need to fight anymore, Han family young master said. But with your guidance, I'm confident that I can get rid of them all. Han family young master said confidently. If it was just a small team of 8 people, Gu Fei was confident. With just him alone, he could still get rid of all 60 of them. No need. Let's just run. But Gu Fei wasn't willing to give up. He clearly had the ability to counterattack. Why did he have to run like a rat? Yeah. If we can kill them, why not? Yutian Shenming was also angry. Although we have no sense of direction, we still have the pride of an expert. Qianli moved towards 234,259. Yutian, there's a small team searching the forest. Be careful and hide. Han family young master actually ignored the 2's protests. Good, I'll get rid of them, Yutian Shenming said. Although it was hard for someone with no sense of direction to fight in this kind of environment, Yutian Shenming would rather do so than continue hiding like Han family young master said. Brother Yu, move towards 322,145. Yutian Shenming clearly didn't want to follow orders. Han family young master actually calmly ignored him again. Young master, since we have the ability to get rid of them, why are we still wasting time like this? Brother Yu wasn't as impulsive as Yutian Shenming. While following orders and moving, he also voiced out his doubts. Brother Yu, you're not going to be childish too, right? Han family young master said. I just want to know the reason. There's no time now. Sword demon, turn towards 128,278. If you see an enemy on the way, use stealth. 30 seconds is enough for you to get rid of them, Han family young master said. Sword demon didn't say a word. He silently moved according to Han family young master's instructions. On the Muyun mercenary group side, a surprised voice sounded in the mercenary channel. We found one in the forest. Take him down. The first team will go and support him. Unchung Mutsu continued to command the other teams to encircle the 2 people that he could see running on the map. Unfortunately, although he was ranked 7th in the parallel world, he didn't have the ability to see the coordinates at a glance like Han family young master. The orders he gave were nothing more than move towards XX direction, or move left, move right, move left, move right. With such imprecise commands, it wasn't easy to encircle them accurately. Moreover, there was Han family young master, who was also in charge of the overall situation, who could make adjustments at critical moments. Han family young master didn't constantly give out orders. Gu Fei and the others ran on their own and stopped, and he would only give instructions when it was necessary. At this time, Yu Tianxinming, who refused to obey orders, had already started fighting with the other two teams in the forest. But for Yu Tianxinming, this battle was definitely not exciting. Simply put, sneak attacks in the forest meant that they had to change locations after each shot. Yu Tianxinming understood this principle. After shooting the first sneak attack arrow, Yu Tianxinming quickly moved while the other party shouted, "Here, here," and chased after him. But soon, he simply lost his direction. Here. There. The shout seemed to come from all directions. Yu Tianxinming hid behind a tree and looked around. There was only one question in his mind. Damn it, where did I come from just now? In the end, he made up his mind and rushed out in a random direction, trying to find another target and launch a second sneak attack. Who would have thought that they would discover 6 targets at once? Everyone shouted in unison, "Over here!" Although Yu Tianxinming still shot an arrow steadily with the quality of an expert, when he was ready to retreat, he found that there were already 3 enemies in his path of retreat. Then, flames, arrows, and rogues who were lurking and approaching. Yu Tianxinming fought back unyieldingly, but against a neat team with a priest, not being able to kill them instantly meant that his attacks were ineffective. In the end, when Yu Tianxinming turned into a white light and faded away, none of the enemies fell. Fuck! Yu Tianxinming roared in the channel. He really felt wronged. The score was 4-2. Gu Fei and the others who were still in the field didn't have the time to mourn for Yu Tianxinming. Brother Yu shouted again, "I ran into an enemy." He did not have super high movement speed to escape, nor did he have the fighting ability to push down a few people. Brother Yu quickly fell to the ground amidst the cheers of, "There's another one here." The elite team lost 2 people in the blink of an eye, and the score was 4-3. Brother Yu, who was sent out of the map, was a little stunned. Beside him, Yu Tianxinming was punching the wall angrily. After being stunned for a moment, Brother Yu slowly sent a message in the mercenary channel, hiding like this isn't a solution. "I did it on purpose," Han family young master said calmly. "What?" "You ran into the enemy team as soon as you came out of the lowlands." "That was because I purposely led you in that direction," Han family young master said. As soon as he said this, Gu Fei, Yu Tianxinming, and Unscathed in battle were all in an uproar. "You purposely sent me to my death?" "Brother, you couldn't believe it." "What the hell are you doing?" Yu Tianxinming roared. He was the one who was the most unhappy. From the beginning, he was useless because he had no sense of direction. In the end, when he wanted to explode, he was easily taken down by the enemy. How did he look like an expert? "You're so excited now. If you knew that I purposely set you up in the forest, would you go crazy?" Han family young master said. "What did you say?" Yu Tianxinming really went crazy. What the hell is going on? Gu Fei, who was still in the field, finally stopped running. "Just follow my instructions and continue running," Han family young master said to him. In the end, Gu Fei changed his direction. "I'm going to take care of the guy on the hill. Then, I'm going to kill them all. Update the coordinates of their 8 teams." Gu Fei began to direct Han family young master. "Qianli, I admire you. Go. Avenge me, kill them all." Yu Tianxinming hated that the words in the mercenary channel couldn't express his anger and roar. Gu Fei, who was in the field, carried the Dark Knight streamer and ran towards the small hill. For Gu Fei, even if he encountered 8 teams at the same time, he wouldn't be too afraid. After all, his advantage in speed was enough for him to escape. Uncheng Mutsu, who was on the hill, had already seen Gu Fei suddenly change direction and run towards the hill he was at. "Is it coming again?" Uncheng Mutsu smiled faintly. He pulled out his 2-handed greatsword and propped it on the ground. He looked down at Gu Fei with a look of disdain. As the 7th-ranked warrior, he wasn't afraid of fighting one-on-one with anyone. There's another one." Uncheng Mutsu, who was watching Gu Fei's movements, suddenly noticed a figure running towards him from the other side. "Move towards the foot of the hill I'm at." Two of them are coming this way. Take them down and the score will be reversed, Matsu ordered. Chapter 148. Gu Fei was running happily when he realized someone was approaching him. He turned around and saw that it was Sword Demon. Hey! Gu Fei greeted Sword Demon. Attack! Wait. Sword Demon dashed in front of Gu Fei. What's wrong? If we rush over like this, we'll definitely run into an ambush, Sword Demon said. That's great. We don't have to look for them anymore. We'll kill them all at once. Gu Fei's blood was boiling. He wanted to defeat all of them by himself. Calm down. I know your attack is high, but do you have the confidence to face dozens of enemies at once? Sword Demon asked. Cover me. Gu Fei thought about how he cooperated with Slender Waist Dance yesterday. I can cover you once, but I can't cover you a second time, Sword Demon said as he pointed around. Look. There were many flatlands around them, so they had a wide field of vision. They could already see a few teams from the Cloud-Herding Guild charging over from several directions. Looking at the top of the hill, Matsu raised his great sword and pointed it at Gu Fei and Sword Demon. It was obvious that he was provoking them. Even if they rushed up the hill and killed Matsu, they would still be surrounded at the top of the hill. However, Gu Fei still raised his Night Streak sword and accepted Matsu's challenge. I'll kill as many as I can. Then he continued to rush up the hill. Sword Demon wanted to stop him, but he was not as fast as Gu Fei. Although he was a thief, Sword Demon's shoes weren't the best. He couldn't catch up to Gu Fei even if he used quickness. He could only follow behind him helplessly. Matsu looked at the two men who continued to charge at him. He smiled faintly, but he remained motionless. Just as Gu Fei was about 3 meters away from him, he suddenly separated his hands, each holding a giant sword at his side. Two-handed sword. He was a berserk warrior who had already changed his class. Be careful! Sword Demon shouted from behind Gu Fei. The first skill that a level 40 warrior would learn after becoming a violent warrior was Dual Mastery. However, there was a difference between the main hand and the secondary hand. The main hand would remain the same, while the secondary hand would only be able to display 20% of the user's attack power in the beginning. As the skill's level increased, it would continue to increase. This skill was similar to Spell Mastery and didn't require the player to practice it. Players could only find the relevant NPCs in the Mage Academy to level it up when they reached a suitable level. Matsu's secondary weapon was his left hand. He was level 40, and his left hand could only wield 20% of his attack power. However, the 20% increase in attack power wasn't the only change that occurred because of this skill. Whirlwind Slash. Although Matsu was holding a sword at his side, which was different from other warriors, Gu Fei could tell at a glance just by looking at half of his body. He wasn't surprised that the warrior would use this skill. What surprised him was the timing of Matsu's attack. After fighting against the warrior so many times, Gu Fei no longer took a defensive stance against the Whirlwind Slash. He would use his speed and high attack to his advantage. When he saw that his opponent was about to use the skill, he would strike first and kill his opponent instantly. However, at this moment, Matsu had used the Whirlwind Slash from more than 3 meters away. At this distance, Gu Fei couldn't even attack him. Such a small detail had already determined the difference between a master and a mediocre player. Many warriors didn't even have the chance to use the Whirlwind Slash under Gu Fei's hands. However, at this moment, Matsu's Whirlwind Slash was already spinning. The changes brought about by Dual Hands Proficiency were more directly reflected in this Whirlwind Slash. The Whirlwind Slash released by holding both swords horizontally was twice as fast as a normal Whirlwind Slash. In the past, there were players who noticed this and would try to use both hands to perform the Whirlwind Slash. However, because one of the hands had no attack power, once the weapon in one hand hit the opponent, not only would it not cause any damage, if the opponent was unlucky, the opponent would be bounced back, and the attack of the other hand would also be wasted. However, now that both hands could cause damage, this Whirlwind Slash could be considered to be the real advantage of both hands. Gu Fei's pupils contracted rapidly. He had already made a judgment in the first instance. He couldn't block the whirlwind slash that had doubled the rotation rate. The thought flashed across his mind. Gu Fei knew that he couldn't block it, but he couldn't just sit and wait for his death. He still raised his sword and blocked the attack. As expected, this sword blocked the air. The whirlwind slash had already brushed past Gu Fei's body. However, a dang sound rang out. The other sword attack had struck the Dark Knight Streamlight sword. Gu Fei was bounced back with a whoosh. Sword Demon rushed in the direction where Gu Fei flew out and protected him. "I'm not dead yet." Gu Fei was surprised when he landed. Left-handed sword attacks only deal 20% damage, Sword Demon told Gu Fei. After spending so much time together, the mercenary group knew that Gu Fei didn't often study the game settings like they did. Gu Fei let out a sigh of relief. Even if he didn't study the game settings, after playing for so long, he finally understood some of the concepts in the game. If 20% damage could be instantly killed, then the warrior's attack power was too much. The two didn't have much time to discuss this issue. Flames appeared above their heads, and the temperature under their feet gradually increased. There was also the sound of something breaking through the air. "Dodge!" The two shouted at the same time and slid to the side. Skyfall Flaming Wheel, Flaming Tree Thousand Layers, Snipe, Double Arrow, Homing Arrow. The team had already entered the attack range, and the long-range attackers had already begun to show their power. The two dodged the first wave, but the second wave had already followed. Flaming wheels appeared in the sky one after another. This kind of 5-ring Skyfall Flaming Wheel, which had been looked down upon by Gu Fei before, was now very well coordinated, and it was very effective in increasing the attack range. Gu Fei relied on his super high movement speed to dodge, but Sword Demon wasn't so lucky. He was hit by a Skyfall Flaming Wheel. However, ordinary players didn't have high magic damage like Gu Fei or drifting, and a Skyfall Flaming Wheel wouldn't be able to instantly kill someone. Sword Demon had sparks on his body, and he quickly chased after Gu Fei. "This won't work." Split up 156,217, you rush in that direction. After saying this, Sword Demon had already rushed to the other side. At this time, the ring of fire on top of his head began to appear again, and Gu Fei hurriedly ran for his life. He didn't know how many people he had killed with this move, but now he was forced to run here and there. Was this the legendary karma? Gu Fei ran while paying attention to the situation of the ring above his head. In the end, he could only let out a long sigh. "It's over." The two ring of fire that he had moved to the next section were already in the process of chanting and flashing. When he ran there, the two ring of fire would just fall. It was true that the ring of fire couldn't instantly kill anyone, but unfortunately, Gu Fei's HP wasn't full. It didn't bode well for him. A team of experts was always different. Gu Fei wasn't the only one who understood the principle of calculating the magic damage in advance. Moreover, they had a lot of people, so the calculation of the magic damage in advance was both conservative and advanced. Finally, Gu Fei was included. Depressing. Gu Fei looked at Yutian Shinming, who was waiting outside for him to avenge them, but in the end he died even more miserably than them. Although he knew that the spell would hit, Gu Fei still rushed to the Ring of Fire with a glimmer of hope. Maybe after this Ring of Fire he would still have a trace of HP? This was Gu Fei's last glimmer of hope. He was waiting for the result to be announced, but there was no movement above his head. In this period of time, Gu Fei had already escaped the range of the spell. He looked back blankly and was immediately startled. The swiftly moving Sword Demon didn't break out of the encirclement. Instead, he rushed into the opponent's mage formation with a ring of fire, and with his skillful footwork and skills, he instantly took down two mages. The ring of fire that was supposed to hit his head was interrupted in this way. Then the opponent's mages scattered to dodge, and the archers in the back launched an attack. The Sword Demon, who had become the target of everyone, finally couldn't escape the opponent's attack and turned into white light. Listen to Gongzi's command. Sword Demon sent a private message to Gu Fei before disappearing. Gu Fei was startled. In the mercenary channel, the Han family young master's message had been released again. Direction 164,189. Gu Fei didn't have time to think too much this time and moved in the direction. 174-01. 18176. 20176. The coordinates reported by the Han family young master flashed in the mercenary channel almost like a refresh frequency. Gu Fei kept changing his direction. The pursuers behind him were left further and further behind by Gu Fei due to his speed. Those who wanted to surround him in front of him were avoided by Gu Fei one by one under the guidance of the Han family young master. Unchung Mutsu didn't lead the team himself. He still stood on the top of the hill and paid attention to Gu Fei's movements, directing the pursuit. But the more he looked at Gu Fei's movement route, the more he felt strange. This movement and change of direction were all done to avoid the possible interception in front of him. On the open plains, Gu Fei's field of vision was as flat as a horse's back. It was understandable that someone would avoid him like this, but there were a few places that Gu Fei clearly shouldn't have known about. Yet he still managed to successfully bypass them one by one. There must be someone directing in the dark. The first thought that flashed through Unchung Mutsu's mind was, there's a traitor. He suspected that his command in the mercenary channel had been revealed to the other party. But then he felt that something was wrong. If that was the case, why would these two guys rush to the top of the hill to kill him? A gust of wind swept past the top of the hill, and the surrounding forest rustled. Unchung Mutsu suddenly glanced at the hill opposite him. Although the hill wasn't as high as where he was, it was covered by the forest. If it was at the top of the tree, although the view was not as good as where he was at the top of the hill, it wasn't difficult for him to make such a comprehensive command. So that's how it is. Unchung Mutsu was surprised by his discovery. He immediately issued an order. 3rd team, 7th team, go to the forest on the hill near you. There's one more person inside. He should be on the top of the hill, on the tree. Hurry! 3rd team and 7th team received the order and rushed towards the forest on the hill. On the treetop, the Han family's young master saw the two teams suddenly turn around and head towards his side of the forest. He continued to give instructions to Gu Fei as he muttered to himself, "Oh, they finally found out." The score was 6-4. Chapter 149. The two teams of the Muyun mercenary group dashed into the forest and headed straight for the top of the mountain. The branches and leaves were so dense that it wasn't easy to find the people in the trees with the naked eye. However, the Unchung Mutsu had already confirmed that there were people hiding in the trees, so they wouldn't give up easily. Several archers and sorcerers had already started climbing the trees. The Han family young master remained calm and didn't pay much attention to his surroundings. He continued to pay attention to how Gu Fei was dealing with the 6 teams. After a series of instructions, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. You're now in the blind spot of the hill over there. There are also a few other places. Remember them. The Han family young master quickly reported a few coordinates. Move according to these coordinates. They can help you hold on for a while, but you'll have to rely on yourself after that, the Han family young master said. There are still 11 minutes left. Hold on. What happened? Gu Fei felt that something was wrong. The Han family young master sounded like he was leaving behind his last words. I've been discovered. However, even if I die, we're still leading by 6-5. You can't die. You have to hold on for the next 11 minutes. The Han family young master said to Gu Fei quickly. From the corner of his eye, he saw 2 archers climbing to the top of the tree and looking around. Soon, an archer pointed at the Han family young master. Keep running. Use your speed. Don't fight with them, the Han family young master said. Fireballs and arrows were already flying toward him. Although the Han family young master's priest skills were great, his way of adding points was different. He wasn't a normal constitution priest, so his life was limited. Under the attacks of several people, he only lasted for 2 rounds with the help of his recovery spell before he turned into a white light and disappeared. The score was changed again. It was 6-5. The victory was decided by the last point. As long as the Muyun mercenary group could get this point, it didn't matter how many sacrifices they had to make. The child elite group only lacked one person, and they would be completely annihilated. The Unchung Mutsu heaved a sigh of relief. No wonder the encirclement had not been going smoothly. He had thought that it was because the command was too vague, resulting in the inability to encircle them accurately. He should have known that there was someone commanding them from the shadows. The Unchung Mutsu was a little annoyed, but fortunately, there were still 10 minutes left, and the opponent was only one person. Now he wanted to see where he could escape to. In the distance, Gu Fei had just climbed over a small hill. Unchung Mutsu couldn't see him at the moment, but he knew the general direction. He hurriedly led the team in that direction. Squad 4 and Squad 5 go around the hill from the left. Squad 1 and Squad 2 go around the hill from the right. Squad 6 and Squad 8 go straight over the hill. Squad 3 and Squad 7 get out of the forest and move towards the 4 o'clock direction. After giving the order, the Unchung Mutsu thought that there should be no more problems this time. Just as she was enjoying herself, she suddenly saw that the black figure had clearly climbed over the hill, but he suddenly went back to the top of the hill. The opponent is at the top of the hill. Surround the hill. Unchung Mutsu hurriedly ordered. Got it, the members replied. Standing on the top of the hill, the Unchung Mutsu wasn't the only one who could see Gu Fei. Everyone spread out in a formation and moved towards the top of the hill in an encirclement formation. Follow Gongzi's command. The sword demon's message after he saved him was still ringing in Gu Fei's ears. If that's the case. Gu Fei squeezed the dark night flowing light sword in his hand. He wanted to remind himself that this wasn't a sharp weapon for killing people, but a booster that could provide 20 points of dexterity to enhance his running speed. After waving at the people at the foot of the hill, Gu Fei turned around and retreated to the other side of the hill. Then he started running wildly. In the mercenary channel, the coordinates listed by the Han family young master were clearly displayed. The first one. Gu Fei ran towards the target. Although the Muyun mercenary group had already surrounded him from both sides, they were still one step too late. The 4 fastest archers realized that they couldn't stop Gu Fei in time, so they hurriedly knocked their bows and shot arrows at Gu Fei. 4 tracking arrows chased after Gu Fei. Gu Fei held the dark night flowing light sword in one hand and pulled out the fire baptism with the other. He turned around and paid attention to the distance of the tracking arrows. When the time was right, he suddenly stopped and turned around, knocking away the 4 arrows in a few moves. This harassment affected Gu Fei's speed, and the opponents took the opportunity to close the distance. Unfortunately, all skills had cooldowns, so the 4 of them couldn't shoot any more tracking arrows for the time being. Gu Fei didn't block any sniping skills at all. He dodged them with a few turns. The 4 of them regretted their decision. If they had known that this would happen, they wouldn't have shot the tracking arrows at the same time. They could have cycled around and interfered with Gu Fei's advance. They could have definitely caught up to him in the end. However, who would have thought that there was a crazy person who could knock away 4 tracking arrows at once? The moment the 4 of them fired their arrows, they all thought that Gu Fei was a dead man. But it was too late for regrets. Gu Fei had already left. Classes like warriors and priests didn't have the slightest intention of chasing after him. He was running too fast. Gu Fei rushed out of the encirclement and left the opponents behind him. In this way, with his speed, it would be impossible to surround him. In the distance, the Unchung Mutsu noticed that Gu Fei had suddenly come out from behind the hill, and his own members were all behind him. He immediately realized that something was wrong. To surround someone with such speed, they had to cast a wide net, compress his space, and then gradually shrink it. If they surrounded him like they did on the hill just now, once he rushed out, it would be like a fish in a seabird's cage. If they wanted to trap him again, would 10 minutes be enough? No, there were only 9 minutes left now. The Unchung Mutsu's forehead began to sweat. This time, he didn't dare to deploy his subordinates randomly. While estimating the direction of Gu Fei's movement, he quickly regrouped the mercenaries according to their speed. The slow ones pressed forward and cut off Gu Fei's retreat. The fast ones circled around from the 2 sides. In short, they wanted to surround Gu Fei in this big pocket. Who would have thought that after Gu Fei rushed out for a while, he suddenly changed direction? At this time, the two sides of the pocket had not been formed yet. This change of direction immediately messed up the Unchungmutsu's original deployment. How is this possible? Is there someone commanding in the dark? The Unchungmutsu was shocked. But the score calculated by the system was unquestionable. There was indeed only one person left on the opponent's side. The Unchungmutsu was busy rearranging the formation. Who would have thought that when there was a slight improvement, Gu Fei suddenly changed direction again? The Unchungmutsu was completely speechless. He was the one who was setting up the net, but at this time he had a feeling that a bigger net had already surrounded him. If he wanted to achieve his strategy, he had to break this net. It was not impossible to break this net, but there was no time at this time. There were only 6 minutes left before the end of the match. The whole mercenary group was in a panic. At first, no one cared about the mercenary group, which only had 6 people. Everyone thought that it would be the same as the first round yesterday. They just came in for a vacation, got a perfect, and then left. Who would have thought that they would end up in such a sad situation? As long as the opponent could hold on for another 6 minutes, they would win. No, it was 5 minutes. While running, Gu Fei kept an eye on his back. Occasionally, he could see a few heads. Someone was still standing on a small hill in the distance. It must be that warrior. Gu Fei restrained his impulse to rush over and fight with him. He continued to move according to the coordinates given by the Han family young master. Although he was a little confused and unhappy about the Han family young master's action, he still restrained his desire because of the words of the sword demon. Time passed by minute. When there were only 2 minutes left in the match, Gu Fei finished running to the coordinates given by the Han family young master. At this time, he was at the top of a small hill. The people of the Unchungmutsu were running in this direction in a mess. Gu Fei was a little nervous now. There were only 2 minutes left. He couldn't be reckless. If he rushed out and encountered the situation just now, he would be too sorry to the audience if he sacrificed himself again. If he was alone, he would have killed to his heart's content, no matter what the result would be. But at this moment, the victory of the mercenary group was on his shoulders. Damn it, did I also fall into the trap of the young master? Gu Fei thought to himself. He turned around and ran in the direction where there was no one in his sight. 1 minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, the Unchungmutsu finally sat down on the ground in disappointment. They lost, but this loss was really fucking humiliating. All the members of the Unchungmutsu were transported out of the battlefield with a roar. The result of the second match was that the Child Elite group eliminated the Unchungmutsu with a score of 6-5. Fuck. Where the fucking cowards of the Child Elite group are? Outside the teleportation circle of the Mercenary Union, the members of the Unchungmutsu gathered together and cursed. As soon as Gu Fei got out of the teleportation circle, he was pulled to one side by the sword demon. The 6 members of the Child Elite group huddled in a corner and listened to the curses. Their faces were dark, especially Yutian Shinming. The Han family young master listened for a while and shook his head. This battle is not perfect. We should have covered our faces. Fuck, you call this a victory? Yutian Shinming finally couldn't hold back and exploded. With your command and Qianli's cooperation, we could have eliminated them all. Why did you do this? Yutian Shinming questioned the Han family young master. Yes, they had won, but it wasn't a beautiful victory, and it wasn't convincing either. The cursing from the Shepherd Cloud Guild was the best proof. The Han family young master laughed coldly and said unhurriedly, "What we want to win is the entire competition. We need to rely on strategies that affect the overall situation, not just winning a single match." Yutian Shinming was surprised. What strategies? You'll know soon, the Han family young master said. What's the point of running around and stalling for time? It's not challenging at all. Yutian Shinming said. Challenge? Why don't you go eat popsicles in the snow and pee in the wind? It's challenging, the Han family young master said. What's the point? Yutian Shinming yelled. A meaningful result or a meaningless challenge? Which one do you choose? The Han family young master asked. Some challenges in themselves are very meaningful to me. Gu Fei suddenly said. Chapter 150. Gu Fei's words stunned the Han family young master. Gu Fei came to the game with the simple purpose of using martial arts. The Han family young master and the other players couldn't understand this idea, so they didn't know how to answer Gu Fei's question. Okay, let's talk about it tomorrow. The four of you are going to the guild battles soon, right? Brother, you said to Gu Fei and the other three players. The four of them nodded and left silently. They were going to the same place, but the four of them couldn't help but distance themselves from each other. Only Brother Yu and the sword demon were left in the mercenary square. Brother Yu wiped his sweat and peeked out of the corner of the wall. Let's go. We'll be seen by Mu Yun's people. The sword demon smiled faintly. I'm not afraid. I know how to sneak. Brother Yu was stunned. He patted the sword demon and smiled bitterly. Even so, the two of them still quietly took a detour. The people from the child elite group had almost all met the people from the Mu Yun mercenary group, so they were still fresh in their memories. It was very likely that they would be recognized. Under normal circumstances, this kind of competition was fair, and there was no death penalty. Very few people would hate each other because of this. However, there were always exceptions. For example, some people were too arrogant and despotic, or too impolite, etc. But most of these were caused by the quality of the people. As for Mu Yun and the others, it was mainly because of their extreme unwillingness that turned into resentment and really needed to be vented. The sword demon and Brother Yu circled around and left the mercenary square. Let's go to the tavern? Brother Yu suggested. The sword demon didn't object. The two of them went to Little Ray's bar. Seeing that their usual private room was occupied, they found another seat and sat down. Today's match was a bit disharmonious. Brother Yu said as soon as he sat down. Sword demon smiled bitterly. It wasn't just disharmony, it wouldn't be too much for the mercenary group to fall apart because of this. Fortunately, everyone had been hanging out since the open beta. Although they hadn't done much together, they had formed a bond by gathering at Little Ray's bar every day. Moreover, they hadn't lost this match, so things didn't escalate too much. More importantly, after getting along for so long, everyone had more or less understood Han family young master's personality. He had an extremely strong psychological endurance. Therefore, everyone could somewhat digest the fighting style of Han family young master after the incident. If the mercenary group's first mission had been like this, Sword Demon believed that Yutian Shinming would have already left, and Gu Fei would probably have directly killed the Han family young master. He was a very violent guy. Gu Fei's high PK value several times and his daily wanted mission to kill people had left a very deep impression on the mercenary group. How much do you understand Gongzi's tactical intentions? Brother Yu asked. Sword Demon was Han family young master's online partner for many years. Even if he didn't have the tactical mind of Han family young master, his understanding of Han family young master's tactical intentions was certainly incomparable. Trust between people must be built on mutual understanding. It was hard to imagine two people who neither trusted nor understood each other would work together for so long, even if it was an online game. Sword Demon thought for a moment and said, his tactics today should have been decided after entering the preparation space and confirming the number of opponents. Brother Yu was startled. It was only a few minutes before the start. There were a few ideas in the morning, but it was decided at the time. However, there was an accident at the beginning. Sword Demon said. Accident? Wushang wasn't able to launch a counterattack before he died, causing us to temporarily fall behind in the score. This should be something he didn't expect, Sword Demon said. But, Sword Demon continued, it's very common for accidents to happen during the implementation of tactics. We just need to make adjustments in time, but the overall strategy must always be adhered to. Judging from the way he played today, his goal was to win in this way. Winning in this way? Brother Yu suddenly understood something. There were more people in the square outside the guild building than in the mercenary square. The players lined up in a long line and entered the teleportation circle in an orderly manner. On the way to the guild, Gu Fei always had a thought. If the reborn Amethyst encountered a team of the level of Mu Yun mercenary group, it would be difficult for him and Slender Waist Dance to win. At that time, would he still want to kill to his heart's content, or would he try his best to deal with the opponent for the sake of the guild's interests? Gu Fei couldn't help but think of a saying, "With great power comes great responsibility." This saying was basically rejected by his father in real life. Even though he had such good skills, his father never allowed him to undertake great missions such as maintaining world peace, which left Gu Fei at a loss. In the end, he ended up pretending to be Superman in the game. Gu Fei had already entered the teleportation circle. In the blink of an eye, he was sent to the changing room. "Hi!" Gu Fei greeted the girls. He didn't expect the girls to come so early. Almost everyone was present. Moreover, the atmosphere today was very different from yesterday. The playful and careless attitude was gone, and their faces were serious. Could it be that his and Slender Waist Dance's valiant performance in the last round had made all the girls feel ashamed, and now they wanted to fight seriously and seriously? Gu Fei guessed. "Qianli is here." July came over to greet Gu Fei. "Yeah. How's the mercenary confrontation?" This was a greeting that became popular in the parallel world from today onwards. Before a mercenary battle, they would ask, "How's the guild confrontation?" And before a guild battle, they would ask, "How's the mercenary confrontation?" It was a narrow victory. Gu Fei smiled. "Congratulations," July said. After that, July clapped her hands to greet the girls and began to introduce their opponents for today's battle. As Gu Fei listened, he gradually understood why the girls were so motivated today. Amethyst Reborn's opponent today was a guild called Immortality Among Flowers. They were level 1 and had 50 members. They were a small guild through and through. But the problem was that this guild was formed by a group of male players who picked up girls for fun. He didn't know if the system was up to something on purpose, but it just had to give such a wolf club to Amethyst Reborn, who was a pure girl. When July was understanding the other party's information, she was already furious when she saw their lustful guild motto. When she came back and told the girls about it, it immediately ignited everyone's fighting spirit. Now that she explained it in detail again, the more she said, the angrier the girls became, one after another, condemning this group of perverts. The girls didn't stop once they opened their mouths, and the scope of their attack gradually increased. From 50 perverts from Immortality Among Flowers to talking about all the men in the world. Just as they were condemning the scandal at the beginning of the year, July clapped her hands again. The girls looked at her, thinking that July was going to give her own opinion on the matter. July said, "It's starting in 3 minutes, everyone get ready." What a unique opinion. Gu Fei believed that apart from July, no one else remembered what they were here for. Too awesome. Gu Fei couldn't help but think, look at this pre-battle meeting, how tense and united, yet serious and lively. Today, I'll definitely kill more than you. Before entering the battlefield, Slender Waist Dance walked in front of Gu Fei and said. The screen flashed, and everyone was sent into the map. "Sisters," someone shouted. The girls responded in unison, showing their vigorous spirit. Gu Fei, on the other hand, kept his mouth shut. He had a different opinion about the words, sisters. "Charge!" With a loud shout, the girls rushed forward. In the blink of an eye, Slender Waist Dance was gone, and the priests and warriors were left behind. This was no different from yesterday. Gu Fei was going crazy. In order to take care of the overall speed, he and the priests and warriors were left behind again. Next to him was Luo Luo, but today, Luo Luo was just as serious. She didn't immediately give Gu Fei a recovery spell, but asked seriously, "Qianli, why aren't you charging? Do you need me to give you a boost?" Luo Luo raised her staff, starting to use a recovery spell. Gu Fei ran after Slender Waist Dance. Full of fighting spirit, Slender Waist Dance wanted to steal points from Gu Fei, so she charged toward the enemy's spawn with an imposing manner. In the end, it was empty all around. Not a single person could be found. Slender Waist Dance circled around and didn't find anything. She roared angrily, "Where's everyone? All of you come out." "Beauty, I'm here." Someone actually answered. Slender Waist Dance turned around, only to see a few guys on the hill who were winking at her. Slender Waist Dance dashed forward without hesitation. In the blink of an eye, they had covered half the distance. It was not until then that they realized how terrifying Slender Waist Dance's speed was. They couldn't close their mouths that were drooling when they admired the beauty. After stammering for a long time, someone finally said, "Fuck, run. This beauty is too fierce." The few of them leaped up from the top of the mountain and ran. Also, they were not united. 5 of them ran in 5 different directions. Slender Waist Dance was stunned when she rushed up the hill. She had no choice but to chase after one randomly. However, after a few steps, he saw a black silhouette charging straight at him. This figure with a slender waist looked familiar. She quickly shouted, "Don't move. That's mine." But it was too late. The black figure passed by the target she was chasing. She raised her arm, and with a flash of fire, the target was no longer there. "What's going on?" Gu Fei rushed to Slender Waist Dance and asked about the situation. "Don't steal my people. Don't steal my people." Slender Waist Dance grabbed Gu Fei and shook him. "Don't mess around. There are still 49 people." Gu Fei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He pointed out a clear path for Slender Waist Dance. "There's someone in the forest. Don't try to lie to me," Slender Waist Dance said hatefully. She turned around and continued to chase after the other 4. "Sigh, my kindness is taken as ill intent." Gu Fei sighed and walked toward the forest. "Stop hiding and come out." After entering the forest, Gu Fei knocked on a tree trunk and shouted, Brother Zua, over here." Someone suddenly responded. Gu Fei paused and looked toward the voice. "Fireball." Gu Fei blurted out. A fireball rose up. "Tui." Gu Fei immediately spat and extinguished the fireball. "Why are you here?" Gu Fei looked at Fireball, who was sneakily hiding behind a tree. "Our guild," Fireball said. "Eternal life among the flowers?" Gu Fei asked. "Yes, yes." Fireball nodded. Gu Fei suddenly felt a bit ashamed. Fireball was the first friend he officially made after entering the game, but he didn't even know what guild he was from. He really didn't care about his brother. At this moment, Fireball kicked behind a few trees one by one. "Come out and see." "Brother Zue, I don't need to tell you how awesome you are, do I?" 5 people popped out from behind the trees and looked at Gu Fei as if they were looking at a god. They followed Fireball's way of addressing him, Brother Zue. Gu Fei didn't know what to say. They were supposed to be enemies. But in this situation, under Fireball's leadership, the other party also treated him as a brother. How could Gu Fei bear to kill him? "Brother Zue, how did you sneak into Reborn Amethyst?" One of them looked at Gu Fei expectantly. So this was the reason they admired him so much. Gu Fei sweated profusely. In the end, he calmed himself down and said, "It's all a misunderstanding." He then told them about the incident with Shi Xiaotian. "We got to know each other after that, and they didn't kick me when they were all here. I've been hanging around ever since." Gu Fei said, "But why can't I have such a good thing?" The few of them beat their chests and stomped their feet. Once again, Gu Fei didn't know what to say. Fireball suddenly signaled for everyone to be quiet with his special vigilance. "Stop arguing, more beauties are coming." The few of them immediately dashed behind the trees, and Fireball was no exception. However, seeing that Gu Fei was still standing there, he quickly came out and pulled Gu Fei over. "Brother Zue, here." Fireball lent half of the tree he was hiding behind to Gu Fei. Hiding behind the tree, Gu Fei saw that July, Underwillow, and a few archers and rogue girls had arrived at the clearing outside the forest. "Ah, that skinny beauty is not bad," one of them said, referring to Underwillow. "That's fine too. I think she's a grandmaster of combat?" That person was referring to July. "Be careful, Brother Zue, don't let them see you." Fireball felt that Gu Fei was being too bold and peeping, and quickly warned him with concern. Gu Fei's face was already covered in tears. "Damn it, what the hell am I doing?" Chapter 151. After Chiue, Lu Xia, and a few of the faster girls arrived, they scanned the area just like slender waist dance. Naturally, they found nothing. "I'll go take a look in the forest," Underwillow said. Gu Fei could feel the excitement of the guys around him. The beauty is coming. They communicated this to each other. The light flowing in the dark forest seduces the human desire to sin. These guys, it can't be. Gu Fei shuddered. It shouldn't be possible in the game. Could it be that this competition was different from the usual rules of the game and could break the taboo and use physical attacks? Wait until they arrive. Be careful of an ambush. July stopped Underwillow. Underwillow stopped in his tracks. Fireball and his brothers all looked disappointed. "What are you guys doing?" Gu Fei asked in a small voice. "A competition," Fireball said in a small voice. "Do these guys still remember that this is a competition?" Gu Fei sighed and reminded in a small voice, "I'm also from the other guild." Fireball looked at Gu Fei in fear. "Brother Zue, we're not interested in men, go to hell." Gu Fei was furious. At this moment, a guy beside him chuckled. "Ah, little Ion and the others are all dead." Fireball said proudly, "Those 5 idiots don't even know that girl. They even dared to mess with slender waist dance. They didn't even gather information before hitting on a girl. They deserve to be killed as soon as they arrived." That's right. The others gloated. The relationship between these guilds was really twisted and harmonious. Gu Fei sighed. This was a competition after all. 5 of their own had been killed, but they couldn't wait to pop champagne to celebrate seeing Fireball. He had to admit that these guys were also enjoying themselves. The outcome of the competition probably didn't matter to them. These guys must be thinking of meeting a girl they liked and then showing off their skills in front of her. What a pure wish. Gu Fei couldn't help but smile. He had seen this kind of situation many times. This was related to his profession. Normally, the boys and girls would be separated during physical education classes. However, whenever the boys interacted with the girls, they would act as if they were on stimulants. They would be brave, tenacious, and unyielding. In that state, no one would complain of tiredness even if they were asked to run 10,000 meters. They would rather die than complain. These guys, Gu Fei muttered to himself. On the other hand, the reincarnated amethyst girls were gathering outside the forest. With June Rain and Luoluo, the 2 slowest girls arriving, it meant that the reincarnated amethyst had finished gathering on this side of the map. "Hey, I know those 2. Fireball said proudly. "Which one?" Everyone was surprised. Fireball carefully pointed at June Rain and Luoluo. "That one and that one." Not bad. How did you know him?" Several people exclaimed in surprise. It was already good enough to know 1 or 2 girls in a group, but Fireball actually knew 2 good-looking girls. This was simply a great man. "Thanks to Brother Zue," said Fireball. The few of them came to a realization. So what if he was a great man? More than 50 girls knew this guy. He was a fucking god. A god that they could burn incense and worship when they went back. Gu Fei was a bit embarrassed. "Don't say that." They seemed to be going into the forest. One of them said. Gu Fei looked over. As expected, the girls had organized themselves and were preparing to explore the forest. June Rain walked at the front with large strides. Although June Rain was a little silly, she didn't have a good impression of male players who harbored ill intentions towards female players. This was something Gu Fei knew from the first time he met her. June Rain even said that she was gay. Although the lie was clumsy, it showed her determination to not be harassed by male players. "They're all here." The few of them were excited and a bit nervous. Gu Fei really couldn't figure out what these people were thinking. "Hey, aren't you going to run?" asked Gu Fei. "Why would we run? We've been waiting for this moment," said Fireball. Gu Fei was at a loss. Including Fireball, they had a total of 6 people here. Could it be that these guys were masters? Just as he was thinking, June Rain, who was walking at the front, suddenly cried out, "Ah!" What? The girls behind Xiao Yu quickly rushed forward, followed by endless screams of "Ah!" What's going on? Gu Fei was startled. "It's a trap," Fireball said to Gu Fei. Hurry, Fireball. The few of them said to Fireball anxiously. Coming. Fireball arrogantly came out from behind the tree and very confidently waved his hand and saluted the girls. Hello, beautiful ladies. 1,000 layers of flames of the cinder tree, rise. Fireball immediately started chanting after showing off. The flames instantly ignited in the forest, engulfing June Rain and the other girls in it. Brother Zue, retreat. Fireball pulled Gu Fei back. The other 5 had already retreated into the depths of the forest. The girls behind them hurriedly dodged the AoE attacks of the cinder tree. A few priests rushed up and cast healing spells. Gu Fei followed Fireball into the forest. He was at a loss. What's going on? Does this count as me going back on my word? Fireball and the others seemed to have made arrangements and stopped at a certain place. Fireball explained to Gu Fei, that's the level 40 lurker archer's skill, hunting trap. Gu Fei's eyes lit up as he looked at Fireball. I like the name, hunting. Someone raised his head and smirked as he set the trap. Tihich, what's so great about it? It can only restrict the opponent's movement for a few seconds. It doesn't do any damage at all. Fireball despised. Damn it. How else would your stupid spell hit? The 5 of them cursed at the same time. Gu Fei was quite surprised. He didn't think much of these people from a small guild. He didn't expect them to be level 40 masters who had completed their class advancement. Those who could reach level 40 at the moment were all masters who played day and night. Normal humans who worked in the day and only had time to play the game after work at night were basically at the level of the reborn Amethyst girls. Online games really didn't differentiate between groups. Even a wretched person could achieve great things here. Gu Fei looked at the girls who were setting traps on the ground. He couldn't think of any other word to describe them other than wretched. Done. The 5 of them stood up one after another. Another 5 traps had been set. Gu Fei went forward to take a look. There were 5 traps that looked like rat traps hidden in the fallen leaves and branches. The lighting in the forest wasn't good, and the ground was messy. If you set these traps in Cloud City, anyone who stepped on them would definitely be blind. Looking at Gu Fei's surprised expression, they explained with embarrassment, the more familiar you are with traps, the better they are and the more powerful they are. We haven't been learning for long. Oh, Gu Fei replied. Alright. They hid behind a tree. Fireball pulled Gu Fei to its side. You guys can't kill people like this. Why didn't you 5 shoot just now? Gu Fei asked. Fireball's 1,000 layers flames obviously didn't have enough attack power to cause an instant kill. However, if the 5 of them shot at the same time, the result would be different. Although they had already changed classes at level 40, they still retained their skills before that. The 5 of them still had bows on them. Unexpectedly, the 6 of them were shocked when they heard this. Shoot the beauties to death? Brother Zue, are you crazy? Heh, shoot the beauties to death. One of the guys repeated this in a very ambiguous manner. Heh. The other 5 laughed evilly in unison. Then, they immediately returned to their shocked expression and continued to look at Gu Fei. Lascivious, too lascivious. Gu Fei yelled. Fireball changed its expression and said to Gu Fei with a serious expression, Brother Zue, we didn't want to kill the beauties. We were just playing with them. Hunting beauties. One of them said. Gu Fei finally understood that they were a bunch of guys with bad taste. They didn't really have bad intentions. At most, they just wanted to look at the beauties to quench their thirst and fantasize about them. Fireball suddenly thought of something. Brother Zui, if you keep following us like this, you won't be able to farm points, right? Gu Fei was relieved that Fireball finally remembered what Gu Fei was here for. How about this? Fireball said, I'll tell you where the other guys are hiding. You can go and farm points on them. Gu Fei was surprised. That was a blatant betrayal. Weren't you afraid that the other brothers would have a problem with you? Fireball's 5 brothers cheered in unison. That's a great idea. Brother Zue, you can take Slender Dancer and clear them all. Tisich, Brother Zue doesn't need any help. He can take care of them all by himself. Fireball said. Is that so? The 5 didn't say anything else. It was admirable that Gu Fei was able to mingle in the girls' guild. However, in terms of strength, Gu Fei was currently level 39, one level lower than them. They didn't have much respect for Gu Fei in that regard. You know nothing. Fireball didn't care about the five and pulled Gu Fei over. Brother Zhu, look, they're at. The players of Forever Among Flowers were basically in groups of 5 or 6, each looking for a place to ambush and tease the girls who were alone. Fireball described the map and sold out the brothers one by one, then looked at Gu Fei expectantly. Brother Zui, it's all up to you. Is that okay? It's not good to let them know, right? Gu Fei said. Brother Zui, why are you telling them? Fireball was surprised. They're coming, the beauties are coming. Someone shouted excitedly. Go ahead, Brother Zhu. We're going to continue hunting. Fireball returned to his position. The 6 of them carefully observed the girls' movements. Gu Fei sighed and left. So this was a case of borrowing a knife to kill someone. He wasn't killed, nor was he borrowing a knife. He was the knife. Chapter 152. Coming out from the other side of the forest, Gu Fei could faintly hear the screams of the girls in the forest behind him. The flames flickered behind him, and Gu Fei felt as though he could feel the heat wave. I hunted another 5. Fireball sent a wretched message to Gu Fei. Gu Fei smiled bitterly. What a bad taste. After thinking about it, he looked up and ran towards the location Fireball pointed out. July was currently sending a message in the guild channel. The enemies in the forest are very wretched. Very wretched. Be careful of your feet, it's a trap set by a level 40 archer. As soon as the message was sent, Slender Waist Dance immediately replied, Not at all, I'm coming. There were a total of 50 members of Eternal Life Among Flowers and all of them were present today. So far, 5 people had been sacrificed. Gu Fei had 1 point and Slender Waist Dance had 4 points. They were the 5 that tried to take advantage of Slender Waist Dance. Since then, Slender Waist Dance hadn't been able to get any more and was quite angry. July pointed her in a direction and Slender Waist Dance asked again, Where's Chinli? Where's Chinli? Oh, should I come too? Gu Fei asked. No need, I'm enough. Slender Waist Dance immediately refused. I knew you would say that. Gu Fei sighed. This Slender Waist Dance was really competitive. Now that he had a large amount of resources from Fireball, he might as well ask Slender Waist Dance to share with him. After thinking about it, he sent another message. I found a lot of enemies here too. Do you want to come? A lot? A lot? Slender Waist Dance asked. There should be at least 30 of them. Gu Fei said. Who are you trying to fool? I found 30 of them together a long time ago. Slender Waist Dance said in disdain. Gu Fei was speechless. He couldn't tell her the source of this information, so he could only sigh. If you don't want to come, then I'll go myself. Go yourself. Slender Waist Dance said. Gu Fei shook his head. Don't regret it. Shut up. Slender Waist Dance said. It was so hard to be a good person. Gu Fei sighed and charged forward with his sword. The information provided by Fireball not only revealed the hiding places of several groups, but it also provided Gu Fei with a sneak attack route. The betrayal was very thorough. Gu Fei came to the first hill. He went around to the back and looked up. Sure enough, he saw 5 fellows lying on the top of the mountain, craning their necks to look around. Gu Fei suddenly remembered the first time he fought monsters with Fireball. His strength when he crawled into the bushes alone was similar to these guys in front of him. Birds of a feather flock together. Gu Fei said as he strode up the hill. When he was almost behind them, he shouted, Hey! What? None of the 5 of them turned around. Gu Fei was depressed. He jabbed the Night Streamer sword into the ground and said, Your vigilance is too bad. If you have something to say, then say it. If not, then scram. The other party seemed to be unwilling to turn back. Gu Fei had no choice but to stab the guy on the left with the Night Streamlight sword. Don't mess around. That guy did not even turn his head to look back as he waved his hand and attacked. However, he soon discovered that his HP had dropped significantly. he exclaimed in shock. Are you crazy? Why did you stab me so hard? He then turned his head to look at Gu Fei and was instantly petrified. The other four heard this and turned around one by one. They were petrified and asked in unison, Who are you? Are you a new member? When did you join? I've never seen you before. What's your name? One of them asked. Gu Fei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm Reborn Amethyst. Reborn Amethyst. The five of them widened their eyes. Is it a girl? The five of them changed their angles and looked at the parts of the body that were female. However, Gu Fei's voice was already manly enough. Just this point alone didn't make sense. The five of them finally believed the truth. Reborn Amethyst was a man. Reborn Amethyst is starting to accept male players. The five of them were excited. What else can we do? Let's disband the guild and go back to Reborn Amethyst. Let's talk to Yu Zai. The five of them chatted among themselves, completely ignoring Gu Fei. Gu Fei didn't want to be ignored. One of them immediately noticed Gu Fei and quickly gave Gu Fei a smile. We're all brothers from now on. Gu Fei broke down. He walked behind the others and said 4 sentences. 2 of them were just words, but it was enough to put Eternal Life Among Flowers on the verge of disbanding. In the Eternal Life Guild channel, this bombshell had just been thrown out. Yu Zai. Reborn Amethyst is starting to accept male players. Do you know that? Who said that? The reply came swiftly. It was the guild leader of Eternal Life Among Flowers, Tsubasa Sakuratsuka. This kid was young, but he was definitely not young. His level wasn't low either. He was ranked 18th on the Archer leaderboard and had changed his class to Lurker at level 40. He was the founder of the Hunting Beauties game. He's right next to us. Reborn Amethyst is a man. The 5 of them rushed to say. Is that so? Tsubasa Sakuratsuka was shocked. Fuck me. Then let's all join the guild when it's disbanded. Yu Zai is wise. The 5 of them cheered. At the same time, the players who were lying in ambush in other places had also heard about this big news through the guild channel. They were asking each other and asking around. In the end, a unified voice came out. Disband. Disband immediately. We can't wait another minute. Fireball and the others knew the truth. They felt powerless as they looked at the guild channel. They said a few words, but they were quickly drowned in a sea of saliva. They still had to deal with Reborn Amethyst's pursuit. They didn't have the energy to take care of anything else. Fireball hurriedly sent a message to Gu Fei. Brother Zui, I only asked you to kill them. Why did you disband us? Gu Fei was also confused. He couldn't see the guild channel of Eternal Life Among Flowers, so he didn't know that so many things had happened in just a few minutes. He was staring blankly at the 5 players chatting happily. He didn't know whether he should kill them or not. What's wrong? I don't know anything. Gu Fei replied to Fireball. Fireball knew that there must be some misunderstanding. He immediately sent a message to Tsubasa Sakuratsuka. Yu Zai, don't be rash. I know that guy from Amethyst. It was an accident that he was able to enter. It wasn't because Reborn Amethyst recruited a male player. What's going on? Tsubasa Sakuratsuka was stunned. I don't have time to talk about it now. Reborn Amethyst has no chance, said Fireball. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka immediately went to the guild channel to announce that the news just now was fake. But at this time, everyone was discussing excitedly, and the president's speech could not escape the fate of being drowned out. In a fit of anger, Tsubasa Sakuratsuka changed the guild channel to only allow the guild leader to speak. He then calmly sent a message in the clean guild channel. After investigation, the news of Reborn Amethyst recruiting a male player is not true. Messages could not be sent in the guild channel, so everyone sent a private message to the guild leader. Sakurazuka Tsukasa's message notification was instantly flooded with messages. Opening it, more than 50 messages flew up and the number continued to increase. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka immediately returned to the guild channel. Come here. Don't be noisy. Keep the channel clean. The ones who truly understood the situation were Fireball and the 5 people next to Gu Fei. They were the ones who started the rumor. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka signaled for the others to be quiet and called out the 5 people, asking for an explanation. It's true. That brother is right next to us, said the 5. What did he say? He said he's Amethyst. And then? Did he say Amethyst recruited a man? Asked Tsubasa Sakuratsuka. Come back next time after you've figured it out. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka was furious. Almost disbanding the guild was a small matter. The main point was that everyone rejoiced for nothing. This was a grave mistake, especially since Tsubasa Sakuratsuka was the happiest one. The 5 people were also extremely disappointed. They turned to look at Gu Fei with dejected expressions. How about it? Can we fight now? Gu Fei saw the change in their attitudes. Fight? What fight? The 5 people seemed to be dispirited. It's a guild competition. Gu Fei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What's there to fight with you? Go play. The 5 people were impatient. At the same time, they didn't take Gu Fei seriously. They had already used Identify on him. He was only a level 39 wizard. Take this. Gu Fei didn't want to say anything else. This was a competition they were talking about. In a fight, one had to resort to any means necessary. The fact that he hadn't ambushed them from behind was already a little unbecoming of a player. Now, he was going to give up just because his opponents didn't want to fight him? That would be too unprincipled. Gu Fei swung his sword. That person dodged with a flip and shouted, "Hey, kid, you're really coming." Of course. Gu Fei raised his sword and attacked again. He didn't really swing his sword just now because he wanted to remind them that he was really going to attack. Kill him, kill him. The 5 people shouted in unison. They were finally willing to attack. Naturally, Gu Fei didn't show any mercy. With 2 slashes, he took care of one of them. The other 4 hadn't even finished their battle preparations. After a moment of shock, they exclaimed, "Fuck, he's an expert." As soon as they finished speaking, Gu Fei's sword had already arrived. It was a move of the Gu clan's, fickle in the morning, fickle in the evening. At the same time, he finished chanting double flame flash. The blade of his sword was covered in flames, and he stabbed 4 times. 2 people were burned by the fire, and the other 2 were stabbed by the sword. There was no suspense at all. A normal person might be able to dodge a dual flame flash from a normal mage, but for someone like Gu Fei, who used dual flame flash together with an exquisite sword skill, there was no other choice but to be hit. Being hit was equivalent to death. In the blink of an eye, the 5 people had been killed by Gu Fei. Go brother drunk. Fireball's wretched message came again. Chapter 153. After clearing the first hill, Gu Fei picked up his pace and headed towards the second location. It was just a hill with a depression in the middle. 4 guys were entrenched in the cave, looking around with eyes like camel bells. Hey! Gu Fei came to the top of the cave and called out to the 4. By the time the 4 looked up, Gu Fei had already jumped down and killed one with a swing of his sword. He couldn't talk anymore, or else these guys would dawdle and ask questions again. As expected, getting rid of one of them was much more effective than talking nonsense. The remaining 3 guys screamed and fought with Gu Fei. This was the spirit Gu Fei needed. Of course, the result was the same. They were easily taken down again. Slender Waist Dance was still chasing Fireball and the others in the forest. It wasn't easy to use the advantage of speed in the forest, not to mention that she had to be careful under her feet. Slender Waist Dance had nowhere to put her agility to use, and she was extremely depressed. She didn't expect Gu Fei's score to start rising, and in the blink of an eye, it was already 10 points. Slender Waist Dance regretted it so much that she realized that Gu Fei wasn't lying when he said that he had found more than 30 enemies. But even if she was thick-skinned enough to go over, she still had to get rid of the guys in the forest, right? The girls had already seen through the crude and low-level traps. As long as they paid attention to their feet, they definitely wouldn't fall for it, but their speed of advance was greatly slowed. The 5 lurkers around Fireball saw that the traps weren't working, so they went back to being archers and started fighting in the forest. The 5 of them spread out and shot arrows to the east and to the west, making the girls dizzy and disoriented. The 5 of them were all level 40 experts, much stronger than the girls. They weren't willing to kill them, so they risked their lives to tease them. Waha, I hit one. Beauty, come and catch me. Such arrogant shouts echoed in the forest, causing the faces of the girls to turn pale with anger. Frankly speaking, the girls in the open field outside might not be able to do anything to these 5, let alone in the forest. He was level 40 and an archer, so he was faster than the girls. Apart from Slim Waist Dancer, the other girls could only watch helplessly as he ran away. As for Fireball, which was quite fun at the beginning, it was quite lonely now. A mage's ambush and guerrilla warfare, this was more difficult. The main thing was that he didn't have the speed of an archer. He didn't have movement speed or attack speed. Not long after the 6 of them split up, Dance was the first to catch up to Fireball. With a swift dash, he appeared behind Fireball in a flash. He raised his hand and delivered a staggering blow. Although players were said to have fainted after being sapped, they were still conscious. It was just that they were forbidden from speaking and sending messages. Fireball's eyes were wide open. This was the first time he had seen a slimming Dance at such a close distance. Damn, the light in the forest is too bad. That was what Fireball was thinking. Run some more. Slim Waist Dance was on fire. Gu Fei had already earned 10 points, and she had only earned 4 points from the beginning. This was great, he had finally caught one. What a nice voice, Fireball thought. See how I'll deal with you. Dance continued to curse. Wow, I didn't know you were so bold. I really like it. Fireball continued to be intoxicated. At this time, the effect of staggering blow was over, but Fireball was still staring at Dance. Why are you staring at me? Haven't you seen a beauty before? Dance wasn't nervous at all. She had already caught up. She didn't believe that this little mage could escape from her. But what she didn't expect was that the Fireball actually nodded after hearing her shout. Shameless! Dance cursed and took out her knife. Heroin, wait. Fireball hurriedly said. What? Qianli Drunk is my brother. Give me some face. Fireball said. Dance was startled. She sent a message to Gu Fei and asked, What's your name? The beauty was asking for his name. Fireball was so excited that he forgot something important. He opened his mouth and said, Fireball. A fireball ignited. Despicable. Dance thought that Fireball was trying to distract her and tried to ambush him. She flashed and floated behind Fireball and stabbed him with backstab. Fireball was instantly killed. He didn't even finish his explanation before he died. He only managed to spit out 3 words. I hate this name. Fireball appeared in the teleportation circle of the guild building. He hit the ground with his head and cried. At this time, Dance received a reply from Gu Fei. Ah yes, I have a friend called Fireball. Fireball? His name is Fireball? Dance was stunned. What's wrong? Gu Fei asked. Nothing, Dance said. Then I'll continue. After sending this message, Gu Fei shouted, Hey! And rushed in front of them. Sword light, fire light, white light, points. Every time there was a change in the score, the system would notify him. Dance saw that Gu Fei's score had increased by another 5 points. She was so upset that she hit her head against a tree. I regret it. I shouldn't have come to the forest in the first place. If I didn't come, I wouldn't be tied down by these damned archers. If I didn't get tied down, I wouldn't be in such a sad situation. Ah, Dance, what are you doing? Luluo and a few girls happened to pass by this place. It's okay, it's okay. Thin Waist Dance quickly wiped her face, turned around, and ran away. Where the hell did you all go? Get the hell out here. Slender Waist Dance's roar rang out from the forest. The beauty is here. 5 voices came from 5 different directions. Dance continued to collapse. Meanwhile, on Gu Fei's side, he had already finished off 3 teams in the blink of an eye. The members of Eternal Life Among Flowers had noticed this. The guys who were sent out of the battlefield were denouncing Gu Fei together. The main point was that these 10 people did not even have the chance to see the beauties before they were sent out by Gu Fei. How could these perverts swallow their anger? When Gu Fei rushed to the front of the fourth team, he found that they were not as careless as before. They only cared about looking for girls while drooling. As soon as Gu Fei showed his face, the group of people saw him and quickly prepared for battle. Gu Fei was relieved, very relieved. In order to not let the enemy wait any longer, he chose the fastest route and rushed forward. When he was close, Gu Fei found that there were archers and sorcerers in the enemy's formation, but they did not attack him. A few steps closer, Gu Fei saw a young man who looked like Yu Shenming. He took a few steps forward to greet him and spoke in a mature tone. "Friend, we're all the same. Why are you in such a hurry to kill each other?" Gu Fei knew what he was referring to and smiled. "Not at all, it was just a misunderstanding. I didn't want to." A full man doesn't know the hunger of a hungry man. The members of Eternal Life Among Flowers were furious. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka was even more so. With the spirit of avenging his brothers, he said, "The others don't need to get involved. I'll fight you one-on-one." "That's great." Gu Fei nodded. He didn't care if it was one-on-one or a group. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka took off the bow on his back, fiddled with the bowstring, looked around, then turned around and reminded his brothers, "Call me if you find any beauties." His brothers nodded in agreement. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka finally felt relieved and walked in front of Gu Fei. "Then let's begin." But as soon as Gu Fei said this, he raised his sword and stabbed forward. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka was also a straightforward person. He didn't say anything and just turned around and ran. Gu Fei hurriedly chased after him, but he didn't expect the distance to increase after a few steps. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka was extremely fast. If he didn't use Swift Step, he would probably be at this level. Archers were the class with the most dexterity advantage. If they put all their points into dexterity, they wouldn't even need the Windchaser boots. They would still be able to reach the level of a full dexterity thief. As for a full dexterity mage like Gu Fei, he wasn't good enough in front of them. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka ran a long distance before turning around. He revealed a calm smile and shot an arrow at Gu Fei. At the same time, he called out to his brothers, "Did you find any beauties?" His brothers replied in unison. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka nodded his head. Seeing that Gu Fei had dodged the arrow, he continued to run. As he ran, he turned around and shot a homing arrow. Gu Fei was inwardly astonished. Speaking of which, there were quite a few strange people in the game. Thin Waist Dance could attack while running without stopping, and this Tsubasa Sakuratsuka could actually shoot arrows while running. Homing arrows did have a tracking function, but they had to be aimed before they could chase. If he could shoot homing arrows, then shooting other skills while running wasn't a problem. Even if the game had a certain amount of support for using bows and arrows, shooting arrows while running wasn't an easy task. At the very least, Gu Fei couldn't do it. Even though he had practiced martial arts for many years, he had never dabbled with bows and arrows. Even though he was astonished by Tsubasa Sakuratsuka's skills, hitting Gu Fei was another matter altogether. Gu Fei swung his sword and knocked the arrow down. Even though Tsubasa Sakuratsuka ran faster than the average person, the arrow in his hands was only slightly faster. No matter how good the shoes were, they only increased movement speed. They didn't affect attack speed. Seeing Gu Fei knock down the homing arrow, Tsubasa Sakuratsuka was a bit surprised. After running a few steps, he turned around again. The sound of the bowstring and the sound of a sniper had already been released. The sniper's speed was too fast. Gu Fei didn't dare rashly use his sword to block it. He quickly dodged to the side and the arrow flew past. "Fuck, you dodged that too." "Stuff," Tsubasa Sakuratsuka said. Gu Fei stopped running. "Look, if this continues, I won't be able to hit you and you won't be able to catch me. The two of us will be tied. So there's no need to fight. Go play somewhere else." After speaking, Tsubasa Sakuratsuka ran towards his brothers, shouting, "Has the beauty appeared yet?" Gu Fei was helpless. What was a scoundrel? Today he finally met one. Chapter 154. After Tsubasa Sakuratsuka finished speaking, he ignored Gu Fei and hurriedly went back to the top of the hill with his brothers. The gap in the boss's back was left for Gu Fei, so he wasn't afraid of Gu Fei's sneak attack. Gu Fei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. These guys were so wretched in front of the girls, but now they were so open and above board, weren't they? I'm an enemy, an enemy. Gu Fei screamed in his heart and walked in front of them. Hey, this is a competition, you guys. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka impatiently interrupted him. You're going to win anyway, we won't really do anything, so why are you still being so calculative? Let me tell you, you sent so many of our brothers out of the battlefield, and now they're all crying in front of the guild building. Hurry up and think of an explanation. Explanation? Why do I have to explain? Gu Fei was going crazy. This is a competition, big brother. Isn't it obvious and reasonable for me to cut you guys? Since it's a competition, why are you so serious when you know you're going to win? You're a human. Just be reasonable. Come, lie down here and introduce your brothers to the beauties of your guild. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka wasn't that old, but his speech was extremely mature, and he was full of fallacies. I don't spend much time with them, so I'm not that familiar with them. Gu Fei was speechless. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka snorted. That's not right. You have more than 50 girls all to yourself. Do you think you can use them all? Keep the ones you like, and share the rest with everyone. You're a human, why bother? I'm really not familiar with them. Gu Fei finally broke down after the waist dance. You're really not familiar with them. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka sighed. Speaking of which, even if you're not familiar with them, you should know where they are right now, right? Tsubasa Sakuratsuka asked. Oh, they're all in the woods over there. Gu Fei pointed. Seeing that he couldn't deal with these people, he might as well send them to Slender Waist Dance. That girl was also quite pitiful. He had scored 14 points in a row, and she had only scored 1 point. When Tsubasa Sakuratsuka saw where Gu Fei was pointing, he turned pale with fright. Fuck, they've all been lured over by those bastards. I was wondering why we haven't seen a single strand of hair. This group of scum wanted to eat alone. Comrades, get up, charge. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka waved his hand, and the few fellows who were lying on the ground stood up majestically. They packed their luggage and looked like they were about to charge. Thanks, brother. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka patted Gu Fei on the shoulder. Gu Fei smiled bitterly. We still have 4 teams. If you want to farm points, go find them. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka said to Gu Fei. Gu Fei was speechless. Just what kind of guild was this? Would a guild leader like this have any popularity? But looking at the fellows beside him, after hearing Tsubasa Sakuratsuka's words, they didn't make any rash moves. Brothers, go chase after the beauties. While you're at it, take care of those bastards who want to eat alone. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka boosted their morale, and then reminded Gu Fei, don't tell the others where the beauties are. The 5 charged down the mountain, and Gu Fei helplessly continued to chase after his target. But Tsubasa Sakuratsuka was a bit more generous than Fireball. He even sent a message in the guild channel, that brother is going to find you guys. Be careful, he's strong. After all, he was the guild leader. Sometimes, he had to do some necessary work. The 4 teams were all focused and prepared, but in the end, they were all swept away by Gu Fei. The battle in the forest was also gradually coming to an end. The 5 ambushers ran left and right, but they still didn't make a move. In the end, the space they could move in was gradually squeezed by the girls, and finally, they had no place to hide, and were surrounded by the girls one by one. What suspense could there be in the following battle? But it was said that the people who were hung had a strong sense of righteousness, and vaguely gave people the illusion that they were real men. As for Tsubasa Sakuratsuka and the others who arrived later, they didn't know that the girls had already seen through the traps and set up the traps as soon as they entered. In the end, after the girls discovered the traps, they knew that there were people nearby and secretly surrounded the scene. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka and the others were still eagerly waiting for the girls to step into the traps, but when they saw the girls turning around and not falling into the traps, they realized that something was wrong, but it was already too late, and they received an extremely cruel blow. Although Tsubasa Sakuratsuka's speed was fast, in the end he still couldn't be faster than Slender Waist Dance. In the process of escaping, Slender Waist Dance caught up with him and hit him with a sap. Then he was surrounded by more than 50 girls, and they attacked him together, and he was blasted into pieces on the spot. When he recalled the incident, Tsubasa Sakuratsuka described it as follows: "At the time, I wanted to run away from the scene like an arrow, but Slender Waist Dance, one of the 5 roaches, caught up with me and hit me with a sap on the head. After that, they were afraid that I would explode when I woke up, so more than 50 girls surrounded me and attacked me together. There was even a priest's holy orb. Do you guys have this kind of treatment?" As expected of you, Zai, the comrades of Eternal Life Among Flowers exclaimed. And so, the second round of the match came to an end. Compared to Amethyst, Eternal Life Among Flowers had more experts. If they were to rely on their own strength, Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance's individual ability would definitely not be able to pass this round. However, because of the special attributes of these two guilds, Amethyst managed to get a perfect again. Their luck was not bad at all. At the same time, Amethyst's Amethyst mercenary group successfully entered the third round. Compared to guilds, there were many small mercenary groups like Child Elite Group, and Amethyst Mercenary Group had the full 20 members of a level 1 mercenary group. It was not a problem for them to deal with such a small mercenary group. As for Child Elite Group, who encountered the 6th strongest mercenary group in Cloud City in the second round, they were considered the worst of the worst. Although they won in the worst of the worst, this incident had a huge impact on them. Mu Yun Mercenary Group was frustrated with their loss, but it was a fact that they had been eliminated. They had no way to vent their anger, so they could only criticize Child Elite Group on the forum. They criticized them for being despicable, wretched, and dishonest. This was the hottest topic after the first 2 rounds of the competition. Many players from other main cities came to visit the thread. In the thread, Mu Yun Mercenary Group explained Child Elite Group's strategy in detail. In short, a few characters with high damage would act as human bombs and sacrifice themselves to get more points than the number of members on their side. Then, the fast characters would run around the map to stall for time. Of course, the players who participated in the mercenary battle were familiar with this rule. However, they did not expect a small mercenary group with 6 members to use this rule to defeat a large mercenary group like Mu Yun, which was ranked 6th. For a moment, all the mercenary groups that were similar in size to Mu Yun felt insecure. It was really depressing to be eliminated by this kind of roguelike playstyle. Of course, the people in the mercenary groups knew about the news on the forum. Even Gu Fei went to pay attention to it after hearing about the commotion. At the moment in Little Ray's bar, the faces of the players were all dark. They were not willing to talk to the Han family young master. If they had used this method to win because they had no other choice, they would not feel ashamed even if they were scolded by others. Instead, they would be proud of themselves. But the reality was that Child Elite Group could do much more than that. With the young master of the Han family's abnormal coordinate guidance ability, Gu Fei's abnormal lethality, and the cooperation of a few other ruthless characters, it was entirely possible for the Mu Yun mercenary group to be annihilated. Outsiders didn't know about this, but the experts in the mercenary group were well aware of it. That was why they were full of resentment toward the tactics adopted by the Han family young master. In particular, he had deliberately sacrificed the masses for this tactic. The atmosphere in the private room of the bar was depressing. The Han family young master didn't say anything as he drank. Brother Yu was introducing today's opponents. After a big loss in the last round, the Child Elite Group had become more normal in this round. They had drawn a small mercenary group that was similar to them. There were only 5 members, 1 less than the Child Elite Group. Well, in today's match, I think we should get rid of one of them and then defend our position. They can't do anything to us. Then drag it out until the end of the competition, we should be able to obtain a complete victory. Imperial Sky Divine Ming said in a strange tone. Everyone looked at the Han family young master. After yesterday's match, everyone went to participate in the guild competition and didn't talk much. However, it had been a while since the guild competition ended, and the Han family young master didn't say anything. The Han family young master drank the last drop of wine in his glass and finally said, "Well, Yutian's method is indeed a good way to fight. Let's do it. Don't be so childish. Let's talk business." Brother Yu smiled bitterly. Yutian Shenming was still young, so he was a little awkward and couldn't think straight. The Han family's young master was really ridiculous. He actually kept on arguing with him. After Brother Yu smoothed things over, the Han family young master then straightened his attitude. "We purposely fought like this yesterday to give a warning to the big mercenary groups. I also admit that we had the ability to wipe out the other party in that situation. However, one of the conditions was that we needed my high ground command. But high ground command would expose us first. Yesterday, we were lucky to encounter this map. It had a good concealment and high ground. High ground command tactics require too many conditions for us. We can't guarantee that it will work every time. That's why I used yesterday's opportunity to obtain this kind of victory. My goal is to pave the way for the big mercenary groups in the future. The criticism on the forums is exactly what I want. As for what effect it will have, we'll know the next time we meet a big mercenary group," the Han family young master said. Chapter 155. To become an expert in the game, one had to have a certain level of intelligence. This was a world where the game was constantly changing. There were plenty of people who switched to a new game every 3 to 5 months. If he wanted to make a name for himself in this world, Guojing's path of success wouldn't work. The few of them here were all people who had made a name for themselves in the game. Even if they weren't geniuses, they were at least quick-witted and experienced. As a result, Han family young master's words were already very clear. There was no need for further explanation. For the sake of the team's final victory, they had to sacrifice a few people. As an expert, they had to understand this. As for being kept in the dark by Han family young master and being pushed forward to be sacrificed, even though they didn't feel good about it, when they thought about Han family young master's personality, everything seemed to fall into place. The few of them could only curse a few times in their hearts and let it go. As for the nonsense about not doing it again, there was no need to mention it. He didn't say anything? This was decided by Han family young master's personality. How could such a narcissistic person be persuaded to change his personality? The atmosphere was still a bit awkward. Even though it was a game and dying wasn't a big deal, it would still hurt their pride. Brother Yu was a fake expert, so the pride of an expert wasn't that strong. However, Yutian Shenming and Unscathed in Battle were shameless in front of beautiful women. Normally, they still cared a lot about their pride as experts. After hearing the explanation, they felt much better. If there was another fake character who praised the two of them for their sacrifice in this battle, then their vanity would be affected and the final thorn in their hearts would disappear. However, there was no such person in the mercenary group. They looked at each other for a while, but no one said anything. Yutian Shenming stood up first. "I'm going to fix some arrows. Let's meet in the changing room later. I'm going to fix my equipment." Unscathed in Battle also stood up. Replenishing arrows and repairing equipment were the two's usual methods of escaping, so everyone was used to it. "Then I'll go take a look as well." Brother Yu got up and walked to the door. He deliberately called out to Gu Fei, who did not show much reaction, "Let's go, Qianli." Gu Fei stood up with a start. Is the meeting over? The few of them were speechless. To a certain extent, this guy was related to the life and death of the mercenary group, and he could still fall asleep. He was too heartless. "It's over," Han family young master said lightly. "Oh, then I'll go buy 2 caddies of fruits." This was Gu Fei's way of escaping. He followed Brother Yu out of Little Ray's bar. Brother Yu asked him, "Do you want to buy some fruit?" Gu Fei gave a simple and honest smile. "His pockets are full of fruit." Brother Yu also smiled. The two didn't know where to go, so they just walked around aimlessly. "Don't you mind Gongzi's method?" After a long silence, Brother Yu finally spoke. Gu Fei smiled. "You see, although Gongzi set you up, he didn't set me up. This reason is too practical." Brother Yu sighed. Just kidding, just kidding. Gu Fei said, what do you think? If it's a big guild, this kind of method is too much. But we're just a small group of friends. As long as we can understand each other, it's not a big deal. Brother, you said. Gu Fei nodded, I think so too. Hey, your answer is too cunning. What do you think? Brother, you said. Gu Fei said, at first I was a little angry, but then I thought about it. This is a game. According to the rules of the game, there's no loss in sacrifice. If it can be exchanged for the final victory, I don't think you guys will have any more opinions? That's true. Brother, you said, so you don't mind at all? I mind too much. Gu Fei's face was gloomy. Just kill them. Kill them one by one. How fun would that be? That way, there's only 6 of us. Can we make it to the end? Brother, you said. Why do you care? As long as we fight to our heart's content. Gu Fei clenched his fist. Brother Yu was speechless for a long time. Finally, he sighed. You PK maniac, I don't have anything in common with you. Gu Fei gave a simple and honest smile. Indeed, as a player, Gu Fei's perspective was very different from normal players like Brother Yu. If you were to differentiate between the process and the result, most players were more of the result type. As long as they could get the final reward, they could endure anything that happened in the process. At most, they would have a little conflict, but it wouldn't affect the overall situation. As for the process type, they were the legendary people who always said things like, enjoy the game, and play the game, not be played by the game. Among them, there were a lot of people who said that the grapes were sour because they couldn't eat them. Apart from these people, those who really had this kind of thinking weren't as extreme as Gu Fei. For Gu Fei, PvP was his goal. The process and the result were already won. As for the result, that normal players cared about, it mostly referred to the rewards of experience and items. These weren't what Gu Fei wanted. After that, there was no more talk. The few of them went their own ways. When they saw that it was about time, they went to the teleportation circle to enter the arena. Since the opponent's mercenary group only had 5 people, for the experts, there was really no need to talk about tactics. They could just go up and deal with them one-on-one. Therefore, in the locker room, everyone mainly emphasized the problem of restricting Gu Fei's attacks. You're not allowed to use area of effect spells, and you're not allowed to attack 2 targets at the same time. There are a total of 5 people on the other side, and you're only allowed to kill one of them. Imperial Divine Ming and the others sternly requested Gu Fei. I told you guys that you didn't have to come at all. Gu Fei was distressed. No. The few of them said in unison. The mercenary group had gone through 2 rounds. One round, they didn't participate in the competition, and the other round, they were cannon fodder. No matter how much they cared about the result, the process was a little too boring. 1 person each. Everyone said the same thing. It was hard to tell if it was specifically discussed with Gu Fei. The 4 of us will each take 1, and then Brother Yu and Gongzi will deal with 1 together. I'll try my best. Gu Fei sighed. But in the end, something unexpected happened. The competition was about to start, but in the end, only 3 of the 5 people from the opposing mercenary group came. How do we split it? Brother, you said. Gu Fei, Yutian Shenming, and Sword Demon looked at each other and said with a smile, then we can only fight for it. Whoever gets it first gets it. Oh my God. Unscathed in battle was depressed. This was clearly a competition of speed. Compared to those 3 guys, as a warrior, he didn't even stand a chance. As for Brother Yu and Han family young master, they weren't combat professions, so they weren't too disappointed that they couldn't participate in the battle. After the countdown, the 6 of them were sent out of the battlefield. There were a total of 9 people on both sides. This was the smallest map with less than 10 people, so they could see the 3 figures on the other side at a glance. Charge! Yutian Shenming's shout was filled with unparalleled confidence. Although the wind-chasing boots had been traded with slender waist dance, the difference in movement was only 2 points. Plus, Yutian Shenming was an archer with an advantage in agility. Although he wasn't full agility, his speed was already at the same level as Gu Fei. After this shout, Gu Fei and Sword Demon had already rushed out. Yutian Shenming was also about to step forward, but he found that his feet had suddenly left the ground and he was floating in the air. He turned around and saw that Unscathed in Battle had picked him up. "What are you doing?" Yutian Shenming was stunned. "If I can't get it, then I'll drag someone down with me," Unscathed in Battle said with a smirk. "Fuck, why me? Why me?" Yutian Shenming waved his fists and legs in the air. Unfortunately, even if he hit Unscathed in Battle, the damage was limited. Unscathed in Battle picked him up and shook him against the wind. Yutian Shenming was already dizzy. "Am I supposed to go catch Jianli? I don't want to live anymore," Unscathed in Battle said. "Sword Demon and Sword Demon," Yutian Shenming said. "It's too late." Unscathed in Battle's other hand pointed into the distance. "Look, they've already run over there." After saying this, he put Yutian Shenming back on the ground, but his hand was still on his shoulder. One old and one young, one tall and one short, two figures stood on top of a hill. Looking at the figures of Gu Fei and Sword Demon in the distance, Yutian Shenming instantly burst into tears. There was no suspense in this match. In order to repay Sword Demon for saving him yesterday, Gu Fei reluctantly gave up an opponent that he could have taken care of himself, but in the end he left it to Sword Demon. Child Elite Group easily passed the third round. Then came the Guild War. Right now, Gu Fei was more interested in the Guild War than the Mercenary War. Firstly, there were always a lot of people in the Guild War. Secondly, the reborn Amethyst didn't need to talk about tactics. They completely let Gu Fei do whatever he wanted. This was what Gu Fei had always been looking forward to, even though he hadn't met an opponent that could compete with him yet. Maybe Tsubasa's Sakuratsuka could be counted as one. But just as he said, fighting with Gu Fei would only result in a draw. There wasn't much meaning to it other than killing time. Since the Mercenary War ended too quickly, it was still early. Gu Fei ran off to play a few more wanted quests. When it was almost time, he rushed to the guild building's teleportation circle. When he entered the changing room, he noticed that the girls' faces were solemn. Did they meet a wretched guild again? Just as he was thinking, July saw that everyone was present and began to explain today's opponent as usual. Reborn Amethyst finally drew a big draw. Today, their opponent was the second largest guild in Cloud City, drinking and singing. Chapter 156. Singing to Wine was the second largest guild in Cloud City, but it was on the same level as Reigning Four Seas. It was also a level 5 guild with 750 members. With the number of players in the parallel world, the only thing the major guilds had to worry about was their levels. Numbers? As soon as the guild level increased, they could immediately fill up with members. Many people would do anything to join such a large guild. The reason why Singing to Wine was considered the second largest guild was because they were lagging behind Reigning Four Seas in terms of development. In the end, they were always slower than Reigning Four Seas when it came to leveling up, so they were at a disadvantage when it came to replenishing members after leveling up. However, comparing guilds was not as simple as that. Maintaining a guild was also an important job. The major guilds wouldn't just guard the 750 people in their guild like this. Changes in personnel often occurred. Those who did not come online for a long time, or those who did not level up fast enough, would be regularly cleaned up. The positions that were left would naturally be filled with stronger new blood. This kind of arms race was the main theme of the competition between guilds. That was why the first and second place of these two guilds was just a matter of leveling up. In terms of strength, since the two guilds had never clashed with each other, and the outside world did not know much about the experts in the guilds, it was hard to tell who was better. However, this competition would become an important basis for evaluating strength in the future. Now that a small guild like Amethyst, with only 54 members, had drawn such a strong opponent, it was no wonder everyone's faces were gloomy. Even though the girls did not care about winning or losing, it did not mean that they did not care at all. Deep in their hearts, they still hoped for a miracle. Even if they muddled along, they would feel a little disappointed when they could no longer live on. That was how the girls felt right now. After July's introduction, she did not give any impassioned words of encouragement. She simply said, Do your best, everyone. The girls nodded, and Gu Fei chose to remain silent. Slender Waist Dance walked up to Gu Fei. There are a lot of resources today. I won't lose to you. Gu Fei smiled bitterly. I'm afraid this is your last chance. Do your best. Thin Waist Dance was stunned. Why do you say that? Do you think we can still win today? Gu Fei was surprised. Why not? Slim Waist Dance was surprised. Didn't you see the forum? Forum? Gu Fei didn't understand. I didn't read much. What's on it? The Child Elite Group, with only 6 people, defeated the Muyun Mercenary Group, which had almost 70 people. You don't even know about this? Slim Waist Dance exclaimed. I know too well, said Gu Fei. Everyone was attracted by Slim Waist Dance's scream. Although the reputation of the Child Elite Group wasn't that great, it held a lot of weight among the first batch of old members of Amethyst. They knew that the Child Elite Group was the one who had helped them settle the non-Smilers incident, so this time, when the Child Elite Group made the headlines, the girls were all excited for them. Now that Slim Waist Dance suddenly mentioned the mercenary group, they all pricked up their ears to listen to the gossip. Slim Waist Dance cleared her throat and glanced at everyone. Girls! Cough cough. Gu Fei coughed hard. Slim Waist Dance glanced at him, and someone. Gu Fei didn't say anything. Being someone was better than being part of the girls. Slim Waist Dance then said in her speech, the Child Elite Group is a good example for us. They are not afraid of strong enemies, and their spirit of using their advantages to deal with the enemy is worth learning. In today's battle, we will encounter the same situation and difficulties as the Child Elite Group, so we must learn from their tenacious style. If we can run, we run. If we can't, we drag them down with us. Maximize your contribution to the guild and contribute every bit of your strength to the guild's final victory. Slim Waist Dance's speech caused an enthusiastic response. The ladies who participated in the meeting all expressed that after listening to Slim Waist Dance's words, they felt as if the clouds had parted and they could see the blue sky. Their hope for victory in this match was reignited. Everyone promised that they would follow Slim Waist Dance's instructions and fight with style and standard in this match. The meeting came to an end in an optimistic atmosphere. As the countdown ended, everyone was transported to the battlefield. Slender Waist Dance brandished her dagger and let out a loud shout before disappearing into the distance. The girls waved their weapons in response and ran off in all directions. Gu Fei was at the back of the crowd and spat out a mouthful of blood. Rotten wood cannot be carved. Young people are not worth scheming with. If they could win today's match, Slim Waist Dance would have to have the undying body of one of the 5 roaches when they pierced through the 12 golden palaces. Gu Fei wasn't in a hurry to charge. Instead, he casually climbed a small hill to the side and surveyed the situation. He knew that even if the young master of the Han clan were to come here to command the battle, it would be useless. There were more than 700 people participating in the match against Singing Wine and Amethyst. This map was much bigger than the one Gu Fei had experienced before. Now that he had climbed up to take a look, it was obvious that there were places that were beyond his field of vision. How could he command in such a situation? Just as the Han family young master had said, commanding from a high position had many limitations. Gu Fei descended from the small hill and began to hurry on his way while swaying. The number of people participating meant that not only was the map huge, but it also took a long time. Perhaps, on such a large map, he could rely on his own strength to drag out a victory by running around and slashing people at the same time? With that thought in mind, Gu Fei gave up on advancing from the front. If he did so, he would clash with the enemy's main force. Gu Fei took a detour from the side. He wanted to observe the enemy's situation first. He opened the guild channel to take a look. It was surprisingly clean. It seemed that the girls' expectations for victory were quite high. At this time, they were really focused. But sometimes, focus could not solve all problems. The girls were not strong enough, and that was a fact that could not be changed. Gu Fei continued to run forward. The channel was clean, and the battlefield was silent. Gu Fei felt like he had entered a different dimension. Suddenly, the guild channel flashed. Slim Waist Dance said, Fuck me. Gu Fei's heart tightened. Slim Waist Dance had high attack and high speed. She wasn't any weaker than Gu Fei. With her around, their chances of winning would increase by a bit. Could it be that this woman was killed so quickly? However, the system did not send any messages. Slim Waist Dance continued in the channel, "These guys are too funny." "What's wrong?" a bunch of girls asked in the guild channel. "Hurry up and take a look," Slim Waist Dance said. Slim Waist Dance was too fast. She was extremely close to the front. What she saw was something that others would have to wait for a while. Gu Fei was the second fastest. Unfortunately, he had to climb high and take a detour, so he wasted a lot of time. At this time, there was still nothing in front of him. After rushing for a while, he finally saw a few figures. He couldn't help but spit out, "Fuck me." In front of him, the people who were drinking and singing were lined up in a row. They were a few meters apart from each other, and they were all walking forward with their heads held high. Gu Fei had no doubt that with their 700 people participating, this formation had already extended to both ends of the map. Walking to the other side of the map meant that they had searched the entire map. There was no one that could escape their line of sight. It was good to have more people. Gu Fei couldn't help but sigh. It was just that this formation's search was watertight. If he were to talk about interception, it was a bit too weak. The effect would probably be limited. Just as he was thinking about this, July had already given the order to gather in the guild channel. It seemed that everyone was ready to attack this line of defense. The girls were moving at different speeds, but they were walking the same path. It didn't take long for them to gather. Gu Fei took a long detour and was quite far from them. Although he was fast, he was still a bit slower than everyone else. When he gradually approached the coordinates of the gathering point, he could already hear the sounds of fighting. They had already started fighting. Gu Fei rushed up the hill in front of him. When he reached the top and looked down, he saw that the two sides were fighting at the bottom of the hill. The people of drinking and singing were at an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers, but they were calm and coordinated. They didn't fight to the death with the girls and maintained their formation to focus on defense. The disadvantages of the girls' lack of leadership and team PvP experience were revealed at this time. Their positions were a mess. Since the members of the same party in a parallel world couldn't avoid taking damage, the positioning and movement of a team battle were extremely important. For example, the reborn Amethyst's charge was like a sheet of loose sand. The archers were blocked by their own people, the mages couldn't cast their AoE spells, and the warriors who were usually in charge of the front lines fell behind due to their slow movement speed. In the end, the ones charging at the front were the rogues who were supposed to ambush the enemy and launch a surprise attack. As Jiao Dangu and the others fought and retreated, the Amethyst Crystal sect that was already in a state of disunity was pulled even further apart. Furthermore, the reinforcements on both sides of their formation were constantly rushing over. If this went on, how could the ladies have a chance of winning? It seemed that singing had completely understood their opponent's situation. That was why they arranged such a formation with such obvious advantages and disadvantages. But in front of the girls, their disadvantages were insignificant. This formation could be said to be a success. Gu Fei couldn't stand it anymore. He rushed down the hill and shouted, "Back off! I'll do it!" The girls didn't have anyone to command them. Once someone spoke, they were willing to listen, no matter who it was. When they heard Gu Fei's shout, they immediately retreated. Gu Fei raised the dark streamer and was about to start chanting, but the other party unexpectedly fired an arrow at him. Gu Fei dodged and naturally couldn't continue chanting. At the same time, he heard a familiar cold voice, "A spell. Keep that kid over there." Chapter 157. 1,000 layers of flames ignited in front of Gu Fei, and at the same time, a heavenly fire will begin to shine brightly in the sky. Gu Fei peeked through the flames and saw a priest lazily casting healing spells among the group of Drunken Song's players. From time to time, he would glance in Gu Fei's direction. Seeing that Gu Fei was looking at him, he waved his left hand and saluted to Gu Fei. "Thieves, don't sneak over, it's useless." Archers, don't shoot in unison, distract him one by one. Keep going, Mage, don't stop. The young master of the Han family looked at Gu Fei with a smile on his face as he commanded the guys from drinking and singing to attack him. Gu Fei called for all the girls to retreat, allowing them to free up their hands to deal with Gu Fei alone. The girls were ordered to stand down by Gu Fei, so everyone was looking forward to how Gu Fei was going to leave it to me. In the end, he was blocked by the other side, and with the archer's interference, he couldn't even complete his chant. Fireball, shoot! Gu Fei had the time to cast this simplest spell. Although the damage would be shocking if it hit, the problem was that this weakest spell had very low priority, and the opponent's warriors would be able to cut the fireball into fireworks with a single slash. It was no threat at all. Gu Fei dealt with the arrows one after another, waiting for the magic barrier in front of him to disappear. But obviously, a normal mage had much more mana than Gu Fei, and couldn't keep up after casting 4 or 5 AoE spells like him. During this short delay, the members of the Singing to Wine group had already rushed over from 2 directions. Gu Fei stood on the hillside and looked into the distance. He discovered that quite a few members of the one-line formation were rushing towards the 2 flanks and the rear of this small battlefield in a diagonal line. They wanted to directly surround the girls here and finish them off in one go. Just when he was in a dilemma, Gu Fei received a message. Opening it, it was actually from Han family young master. Compared to your bravery, it seems that tactics are more useful. This guy really had a bad sense of humor. Gu Fei thought bitterly. There were more and more people on the other side, but their strategy to deal with Gu Fei had never changed. Even if there was a chance to attack Gu Fei, no one did it. They still persistently used spells to isolate Gu Fei. The rest of the people were now attacking the girls. While fighting back, the girls looked back at Gu Fei from time to time. They were still hoping for Gu Fei's "let me do it" to come quickly. The situation was worsening. At this rate, it was only a matter of time before the girls were eliminated. Then, Gu Fei would be surrounded by 700 people. No matter how good Gu Fei was at PvP, this was not the situation he wanted. Glancing around, he found a rock diagonally behind him. Gu Fei moved to the back of the rock in a flash. The archer's attack was blocked by the stone, and he immediately became nervous. The Han family young master smiled calmly. Don't worry. Even if they cast spells in that place, they won't be able to attack us. That rock was already within my calculations. The mages who were singing to Wine were startled, and then immediately paid attention. Sure enough, whether it was the heavenly fire wheel or the fire 3,000 layers flames, they couldn't attack that rock. This of course meant that even if Gu Fei suddenly revealed his eyes under the cover of the rock and completed a spell, he wouldn't be able to attack everyone because of the distance. Just as everyone was thinking, they saw Gu Fei suddenly reveal his head. Not long after, a fire 3,000 layers flames ignited in front of everyone. But the person closest to it was still a full 2 meters away. Everyone laughed and praised the exquisite calculations of the Han family young master. At this moment, Gu Fei suddenly rushed out from behind the rock, disregarding everything, and directly rushed towards the magic isolation belt. Starting to be impulsive? Isn't this courting death? As the Han family young master sneered, Gu Fei had already plunged into the flames. With Gu Fei's speed, crossing this distance was only a matter of time. The problem was that he couldn't withstand the simultaneous attack of a fire 3,000 layers flames and a heavenly fire wheel. The Han family young master thought that he would no longer see Gu Fei's figure, but in the end, under everyone's astonished gaze, Gu Fei's figure dashed out of the flames, his body still carrying burn marks. How is this possible? The mages who were creating the isolation belt looked at each other and couldn't help but stop. The spells that were continuously being cast had disappeared, and traces of burning and the fire 3,000 layers flames remained on the ground. And in the sky, there was still a fire wheel circling. Whose fire wheel? Why didn't they throw it away? As expected of the experts of the big guild, they immediately found the reason. They all looked at the mages responsible for creating the isolation belt. They looked at each other and were all suspicious. On the opposite side, Gu Fei, whose body was still emitting light smoke, smiled. Are you talking about this fire wheel? Sorry for making a fool of myself. It's mine. As he said this, Gu Fei said, drop, and the fire wheel fell from the sky, smashing onto the ground. Everyone reacted, too treacherous. You're not all brawn and no brains. Even the Han family young master couldn't help but praise. Gu Fei's sudden interruption of a heavenly fire wheel broke the continuity of the spells released by the mages. But in the cooperation of the experts, in order to maintain continuity, of course they would wait for a fire wheel to fall halfway, and then add a second one. Gu Fei's fire wheel that was cast, but didn't move, won a moment of hesitation. This little bit of time caused the isolation belt to only have a fire 3,000 layers flames. Gu Fei seized the opportunity and rushed over while bearing the damage. This method was actually quite desperate. Fortunately, the mages in Wine and Song knew how to cooperate. If it were the reborn Amethyst girls, they would definitely be casting their own spells, and wouldn't think about working together to form the most effective attack. Their excellent teamwork had now become a breakthrough point for Gu Fei to exploit. Quick attack! As if awakened from a dream, the mages realized that the enemy was already in front of them and quickly organized their attacks. Too late! Gu Fei had already dashed in front of the mages that he had a grudge against. The mages raised their staffs, and before they could finish chanting, they were killed by Gu Fei's dual flame flash. Fuck, what kind of mage is this? The others were dumbfounded. The archers thought that Gu Fei was going to chant an area of effect spell to attack them, and even wanted to shoot arrows to interrupt his chanting. They didn't expect Gu Fei to rush forward, dodge their attacks, and use dual flame flash to kill the mages at close range. This spell's damage is too crazy. The crowd exclaimed. At the same time, they understood why the Han family young master was so impressed with this mage, and didn't dare to let him get close to him, and didn't dare to let him chant. Indeed, this spell damage was too shocking. A few archers ran in all directions, and fired an attack at Gu Fei, homing arrow. This was a skill that Gu Fei wasn't afraid of, but it was annoying. This was because this skill couldn't be dodged, and had to be cut down with a sword. It was a huge disruption to the rhythm of the attack. Gu Fei swung his sword to deal with the homing arrow, and a few close-range mages also rushed forward to keep him busy. Gu Fei had used Thousand Layers Flames and Heaven's Descent Flame Wheel earlier, and immediately rushed out, so he didn't have time to eat a fruit to recover his mana. As soon as he arrived, he used Dual Flame Flash to kill a few mages, so he didn't have much mana left. It was impossible to instantly kill all the people surrounding him. The Han family young master seemed to know Gu Fei's predicament and retreated to the side, smiling at him. Gu Fei immediately turned his head and roared, "What are you looking at me for? Go kill that priest." The crowd couldn't help but turn their heads, but they clearly saw nothing. They all looked back at Gu Fei in surprise, wondering if this kid had lost his mind. Unexpectedly, a figure gradually appeared in the air, and as the figure became clear, its speed also became extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, it was 2 meters in front of the Han family young master. Slender Waist Dancer. Gu Fei noticed that when he rushed past the magic barrier, there was a guy in stealth who went around from the girl's direction. Originally, before the other party appeared, Gu Fei wouldn't know who it was, but this guy's movement speed was really too fast not to guess. Apart from Slender Waist Dancer, Gu Fei really couldn't think of anyone else who could move so fast in stealth. At this moment, there was no one else around the Han family young master, and he wasn't a physique-type priest. With Slender Waist Dancer's speed and damage, he probably wouldn't even be able to use healing to stall for time. Very gratified, Gu Fei returned the smile to the Han family young master and chuckled. However, the Han family young master wasn't in a hurry at all. Facing Gu Fei's chuckle, he countered with a cold smile. Before his smile faded, he heard Slender Waist Dancer exclaim, "Oh no! Why is there a trap?" Slender Waist Dancer was exasperated. The archers who missed their shots when Slender Waist Dancer moved at top speed were all adjusting their positions. Shooting a fixed target was in the bag for them, so they were very relaxed at this moment. How troublesome! Sighing, Gu Fei used the last bit of his mana to create an opening in the encirclement with a double flame flash and dashed out. The arrows and Gu Fei almost reached Slender Waist Dancer at the same time. Gu Fei bent down and swept her ankle. Slender Waist Dancer cried out and fell forward, dodging the arrows. Gu Fei's body was already in front of her, and Slender Waist Dancer fell on his back. Gu Fei couldn't help but exclaim, "Why are you women all heavier than the other?" Heavy, fat, ugly, old, these words and related phrases were definitely taboo in front of women. Now that Gu Fei said it boldly, Slender Waist Dancer, who had always been strong, didn't explode. Instead, she said with shame, "I'm sorry. I have a lot of things in my pocket." "Throw it away. Throw it away quickly." When Gu Fei straightened up, he was already carrying Slender Waist Dancer on his back. He ran a few steps unsteadily and almost vomited blood. Of course, Gu Fei didn't want to fight with Slender Waist Dancer on his back. He just wanted to help her move when she couldn't move. After all, as long as the trap's duration was up, Slender Waist Dancer would be able to move freely and wouldn't suffer any other damage. This was the knowledge he learned from the beauty hunter yesterday. As for how to know if the trap had failed, he just had to look down. The trap clip was still hanging on Slender Waist Dancer's leg. Hearing Gu Fei's call, Slender Waist Dancer hurriedly took out the things in her pocket and threw them out. As expected, Gu Fei felt the weight on his back lighten and his footsteps become lighter. When he looked back, the pursuers were even faster. The trap clip on Slender Waist Dancer's leg was still there. "Don't worry about me. You run first." Slender Waist Dancer said righteously. "Of course not." Someone actually spoke up for Gu Fei. He wants to prove that companions are very important. Gu Fei turned around and saw the Han family young master looking at him mockingly. Gu Fei smiled faintly. "I'm not trying to prove anything. Sometimes it's just instinct." Although Slender Waist Dancer had thrown away a lot of things, it seemed that Gu Fei was too overweight and wasn't much faster in the end. Her opponent had easily caught up to him. Although he didn't have any strength, it wasn't a problem. However, he couldn't move Slender Waist Dancer. Gu Fei sighed. Unexpectedly, the people who had been staring at the two of them suddenly turned their gazes and focused on the ground. Their gazes became more urgent. "These," they mumbled. Gu Fei looked up and saw that Slender Waist Dancer had thrown a lot of things on the ground. Many of them were shining brightly. Gu Fei suddenly remembered that the person on his back was the strongest money warrior in history. It seemed that the things she carried with her weren't ordinary. It didn't matter if he could use them or not. They were still money. How many people would refuse a pie that fell from the sky? The players in front of him didn't seem to want to refuse, but go and pick them up. What if no one picked them up and they looked down on them? Don't pick them up. What if someone else picked them up and they didn't? At this moment, everyone had this subtle thought in their minds. They were all hesitating. How long did the effect of the trap last? Gu Fei had taken a few steps with Slender Waist Dancer on his back. Now that everyone was hesitating, the trap on Slender Waist Dancer's feet finally fell off. "I'm done," Slender Waist Dancer said in a small voice. "Go take care of them," Gu Fei and the Han family young master said at the same time. Slender Waist Dancer jumped onto the ground and said confidently, "What about you?" "I'll eat a banana first," Gu Fei said. "Fuck. It's like this again." Slim Waist Dance mumbled as she floated away in a flash. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.